Chapter 1564 Popular Zero Wing City. Chapter 1564 Popular Zero Wing City. Chapter 1564 Popular Zero Wing City. Following a brief moment of shock, the players visiting Zero Wing City for the first time left the teleportation hall. When these players left the building, they were shocked by what they saw. None of them had expected anything like this. The guild had only recently constructed Zero Wing City. Logically, it should still be relatively empty, but although there weren't many players on the street, there were plenty of NPCs. Several wandering merchant NPCs had already set up their stalls and were busy hawking their wares, as well. These wandering merchants sold a lot more items than those in Stone Forest Town. Normally, wandering merchants had no lack of rare items for sale. Adventurer teams and independent players were often willing to wait an entire day to purchase these rare items. However, these items were usually beyond the reach of ordinary players unless they were incredibly lucky. Yet, not a single player stood before Zero Wing City's wandering merchants. The players, fresh out of the teleportation hall, turned to look at each other and gulped. They then dashed toward the nearest wandering merchant NPC without hesitation, terrified that other players would snatch up the rare items first. Even if they couldn't use these items themselves, they could resell them and make a profit. The 30 copper coins they had spent to teleport to Zero Wing City was worthwhile. By reselling one of the wandering merchant's rare items, they could make far more than 30 copper in profit. The players that had just arrived in Zero Wing City burned through all of their money. Even so, plenty of wandering merchants still had rare items in stock. Scorpion, notify the commander immediately. Tell him to bring every coin we have. This is our chance to make a fortune. When faced with the large number of rare items before them, everyone forgot their original goal in visiting Zero Wing City. They contacted their friends or adventurer teams to borrow enough money to take advantage of this valuable opportunity. As more players entered Zero Wing City, more people found out about Zero Wing City's benefits. More and more players were also coming to purchase rare items. Although players had tried suppressing the news regarding Zero Wing City's benefits, some players that couldn't afford to purchase any of these items decided to publish information on Starmoon Kingdom's forums out of spite. Large numbers of wandering merchants present in Zero Wing City. Zero Wing City's mana density is even higher Stone Forest Towns. Players can accumulate the double EXP buff just by staying in the city. Pictures and videos available. There are so many wandering merchants. How is this possible? You can accumulate the double EXP buff just by staying in the city? As players continued to post videos and pictures of Zero Wing City on the forums, many of the players who had been interested in visiting Ancient Rock City shifted their sights to Zero Wing City. Nothing was more important than gaining levels and equipment to current players. This was especially true for independent players, who didn't get to enjoy guild benefits. It was difficult for independent players to achieve a leveling speed similar to guild players because they didn't have opportunities to accumulate the double EXP buff. Independent players could also enjoy a similar benefit just by paying 30 copper. They would get more than their money's worth. There were also plenty of wandering merchants in Zero Wing City. Zero Wing City, which was receiving very little attention from players, became the target location for many independent players and adventurer teams. The players that hadn't had any intentions of traveling to the Orc Empire quickly made their way to Zero Wing City when they heard the news, hoping to get a good look at the city. As a result, Zero Wing City's player population skyrocketed. Many players in Stone Forest Town rushed over to Zero Wing City. They had only remained in Stone Forest Town because they had assumed that the town's mana density was higher. Now that they knew that Zero Wing City was superior to Stone Forest Town in this aspect, they would train in Zero Wing City instead. Shortly after Zero Wing City's grand opening, the player population rose from hundreds to tens of thousands. Moreover, this number continued to increase as time passed. Big Sis Aqua, good news! Based on Zero Wing City's current statistics, there are already over 300,000 players in the city, the female summoner named Yaya said joyfully. We've already grown past 300,000? Aqua Rose was also ecstatic to hear the news. A player population of 300,000 might not seem like much compared to Stone Forest Town's player population, which exceeded 1 million, but the value of Zero Wing City's player population was significantly superior. Any player that entered Zero Wing City would have to pay a 30 copper entrance fee. Since Zero Wing City's player population had exceeded 300,000, that meant the city had already collected over 900 gold in entrance fees. This was net profit. As more players visited Zero Wing City, the city's income would continue to rise. It was only a matter of time before the city's population exceeded 1 million. If Zero Wing City had a floating population of 1 million, the guild would make 3,000 gold in net profit every day. Even the candlelight trading firm wasn't capable of making that much net profit in a single day. There was also the income from Zero Wing City's hotels and battle arena. The income from these two establishments would likely be on par with the entrance fees. They also had the rental fees from shops. Big Sis Aqua, several merchant players and adventurer teams have contacted us again. They've stated that they wish to rent the city's shops. Are we really going to give them the new conditions? Yaya asked as she looked at Aqua Rose. The conditions Aqua Rose had proposed were simply ruthless. She worried that the merchant players would flee once they informed them of the changes. Of course. Once Zero Wing City's player population hits 1 million, we're going to increase this price further, Aqua Rose said with determination. Yaya didn't know that Zero Wing City was still an empty shelf. The many 2-star and 3-star NPC merchants Zero Wing City had contracted hadn't built their shops yet. Once their shops were complete, not only would they sell items at a more reliable rate than the wandering merchant NPCs, but they would sell even higher valued items. Even more players would be attracted to Zero Wing City then. Even a population of 2 or 3 million might not be impossible, much less 1 million. I understand. When Yaya heard Aqua Rose, she could not help but pity those merchant players. Had they agreed to lease Zero Wing City's shops earlier, they would have been able to take advantage of the sudden development, and made a huge profit. Now Aqua Rose would fleece them of every coin they had. Following which, Yaya relayed Aqua Rose's conditions to the merchant players trying to conduct business in Zero Wing City. This is fraudulent. Is Zero Wing that desperate for money? Crap. A shop on a plot of land with good potential costs 400 gold a week? I might as well just buy a shop in a guild town. The merchant players that received Yaya's message paled and cursed Zero Wing. If they tried to rent a shop on a plot of land with good potential, they would have to add over 57 gold to their daily expenditures. How many items would they have to sell to earn that back? Only large-scale merchant guilds would possibly dare to rent such an expensive shop. These large-scale merchant guilds were made up of merchant players spread across multiple countries. With their wide range of connections, they would be able to obtain many items that would be of great interest to players. 400 gold for a plot of land with good potential? It seems Zero Wing is confident in its city's development. Susie, whom Sherfong had met in Stone Forest Town's advanced auction house, smiled when she received Yaya's reply. This is a good opportunity. I might not be able to rent a shop on a plot of land with good potential, but I should be able to rent a shop in the city's outer area. Although a large number of merchant players chose to give up on doing business in Zero Wing City, there were still a few of them that decided to bite the bullet and rent a shop in the city's outer area. Although the rental fee of 240 gold per week was still expensive, at least they could save on some of their costs. As Zero Wing City became increasingly popular, Sherfong had arrived at the Dark Den's central area using Moloch's ring. The World Summit. This was a place created by numerous gods. Chapter 1565 Land of Gods. Chapter 1565 Land of Gods. Chapter 1565 Land of Gods. When Sherfong returned to the World Summit's outer area once again, he felt that the place had changed since his last visit. More precisely, it wasn't the World Summit that had changed, but himself. When he visited the World Summit previously, he had merely been a Tier 1 player. He had been weaker in both perception and physique. He also hadn't had a clear understanding of what kind of place the World Summit was. This time, however, he noticed far more details. He could feel a strange power filling the area. This power gave off a cloud-like feeling. Although it felt vague, it had even suppressed the disintegration power's effects in his body. The disintegrated debuff had weakened his basic attributes by 50%. Now, his basic attributes were only 30% less than normal. This strange power's effect was striking. Moreover, the closer he got to the World Summit, the stronger the strange power became. Sure enough, the World Summit is extraordinary. It should be quite possible to obtain God crystals here. Shifeng took a look at the distant mountain that pierced the clouds. He had been in a rush during his first visit. He had wanted to secure the Bible of Darkness and leave as quickly as possible. He hadn't bothered to explore the World Summit and the surrounding areas properly. Now that he had returned, he had to research the area. After all, gods had created this place. If he had obtained so much from the moon god's old residence, the harvest he could obtain from a gathering place for many gods would be extraordinary. His goal was to obtain god crystals. The more god crystals he obtained, the better, since he had so many uses for them. Aside from the disintegration armor, he needed god crystals to repair his equipment, such as the Nightwalker's cape and soul orb. He had to search for any possible locations to obtain god crystals. Following which, Shifeng began to explore the World Summit. Time passed quickly. Before he realized it, he had already spent over 10 hours exploring. The World Summit's map was very large. It was like a large-scale leveling map. There were deserts, forests, and canyons around the World Summit. The map itself was like a miniature world. However, aside from the Golden Avenue, the other locations didn't house a single living creature. Don't tell me that I can only obtain treasures by entering the World Summit itself? Shifeng was speechless. While there were many treasures in the World Summit, there were quite a few problems he would have while inside. The amount of time a player could remain in the World Summit was based on the strength they displayed. Previously, he had fought desperately to gain barely enough time to secure the Bible of Darkness. Although he had grown a lot stronger since his previous visit, and he should be able to secure more time, he didn't think that he could gather enough god crystals to repair the disintegration armor. After entering the World Summit, although countless shrines dotted the mountain, activating each shrine would cost a corresponding amount of time. It was obvious that obtaining 1 or 2 god crystals wouldn't be sufficient to remove the mysterious power suppressing the disintegration armor, and no matter how he looked at it, he should only be able to find god crystals in the epic ranked and above shrines. In that case, according to his estimates, he'd be quite fortunate if he could activate 2 or 3 epic shrines. Just as Shifeng was about to give up on exploring the area and reach the Golden Avenue, he discovered something unbelievable. What's going on? Shifeng was dumbfounded as he looked at the Golden Avenue. Players. Other players had actually arrived in this special space. The most unbelievable part was the number of players. There were more than 20 players just within his vision range right now. These players didn't seem to belong to a single, large team. They moved in parties of 3 to 5 people, and they were clearly on high alert despite the fact that attacks weren't permitted on the Golden Avenue. Shifeng also sensed the power of darkness radiating from these players. To be more precise, it was the power of demons. These 20-plus players were all demon players. When the demon players noticed Shifeng, they weren't particularly surprised. They simply glanced at Shifeng before continuing to make their way toward the World Summit. Could there be another method of entering this place aside from Moloch's ring? After watching the group of players walk away, Shifeng quickly noticed several more demon players approach from behind them. It was obvious that there were quite a lot of demon players that had arrived in the World Summit. It was also clear that the demon players didn't arrive at this place using Moloch's ring instead. 2 players wearing black cloaks, 1 male and 1 female, approached Shifeng as he pondered. The man looked like a savage with his unkempt hair, while the woman was a beauty with an extraordinary body. A broken sword also hung from the woman's waist. Shifeng had met both these players before. One of them was Brute Spear, whom he had met on Demon Island, and the other one was Hidden Soul, the holder of pride and the flower of 7 sins. He never thought that he would meet these two in the World Summit. "Fellow friend, are you alone? How about partying up with us?" Brute Spear asked Cherfone, who fully hid his appearance behind a black cloak. Smiling, he continued, "I believe you should know that you'll need to have a lot of time if you want to take advantage of the World Summit. The amount of time allotted if you clear the entrance test by yourself is too limited. You won't be able to explore much with so little time. If you challenge the test as parties of 3 or 5, you'll be able to obtain much more time. How much time each person will get in the end will depend on your own abilities." Among the members of the Sin of Pride, only Hidden Soul and himself had arrived at the World Summit. Most of the other players that had arrived at the World Summit had formed their own parties. Even players that had arrived alone would opt to join 5-man parties rather than a 3-man party like theirs. The difficulty of the entrance test at the World Summit greatly differed depending on if you were challenging the test as an individual or as a party. In the case of parties, the difficulty was no different if you were in a party of 3 or 5. The total amount of time allotted to a party would also remain the same. Each player in a party of 5 would get less than a party of 3. However, a party of 5 would undoubtedly have greater survivability and overall strength, which would allow the party to challenge a test of greater difficulty and gain more total time. Now that they had encountered Cherfone, who looked to be alone, he naturally had to ask and see if he were interested. Otherwise, the two of them wouldn't be able to take the party test and would have to resort to the individual test. Challenging the test as a party gives more time? When Cherfone heard Brute Spear's words, he more or less understood the gist of the situation. He then nodded and said, "All right, I'll join your party." Based on Brute Spear's words, he could tell that the man was relatively familiar with the World Summit. Previously, Cherfone had come as an individual, so he didn't notice that there was a party mode for the test. Judging by how experts like Brute Spear and Hidden Soul were willing to accept a stranger like himself into their party before even confirming his strength, he could tell that the party test was much more rewarding than the individual test. Otherwise, Brute Spear wouldn't bother inviting him at all. Experts on Brute Spear and Hidden Soul's caliber were relatively prideful. If they were capable of achieving their goal on their own, they wouldn't ask for help, especially not from a stranger. "Ha! Wonderful! Brother, it seems you're quite a sensible person as well. If something can be done in a party of 3, there's naturally no need to do it in a party of 5. Let's hurry up and head for the test then." Brute Spear laughed when Cherfone agreed to his invite. Hidden Soul merely glanced at Cherfone before continuing on her way toward the World Summit silently. It was clear that she held no interest in knowing a hanger-on like Cherfone. "Brother, don't mind it. Our commander is always like this," Brute Spear explained awkwardly. "That's understandable." Cherfone didn't say much about Hidden Soul's response. After all, his thoughts were exactly the same as Hidden Soul's. They were merely using each other for their own benefits, and were far from being friends. There was naturally no need to act chummy with each other. Cherfone, Hidden Soul, and Brute Spear walked along the Golden Avenue and made their way towards the World Summit. Chapter 1566 Epic Party Test. Chapter 1566 Epic Party Test. Chapter 1566 Epic Party Test. After reaching the altar at the World Summit's foot, Cherfone discovered that there were easily over 100 players. The majority of these players wore black cloaks, but there were some that didn't hide their identities and levels. There sure are a lot of experts. Cherfone looked at everyone. Has the development of demon players reached such an extent already? Even the weakest player present was level 48, while some had already reached level 49. These players could easily rank at the top of an empire's ranking list. These players also had the capability to transform into demons, which would further enhance their strength. The players that hid their names and levels were likely also powerful. There were many non-human races in God's domain. The demon race ranked near the top in terms of strength. However, these races generally developed slowly during the early stages of the game. On their way here, Cherfone had learned from Brute Spear that every demon player capable of entering this place was a demon noble. This was a benefit available only to demon players who had become demon nobles. However, it was not easy to come to the World's Summit either. They not only had to pay 1,000 magic crystals, but they also had to complete many quests from a demon king. They would only gain one chance to enter the World Summit after they had accumulated sufficient contribution points. There was only one opportunity to enter the World Summit every 3 days. In God's domain, it was extremely difficult for demon players to obtain a noble rank. There were over 100 demon nobles here now. One could already imagine how many ordinary demon players there were in God's domain. Meanwhile, even at the lowest demon noble rank, Tier 1 demon players would have their physique and basic attributes improved enough to rival ordinary Tier 2 players when they transformed into demons. The 100-plus demon players present could already be considered Tier 2 players. A party of 5 was just finishing their battle at the altar when Shifeng's group approached it. As the 5 players sat on the floor panting, expressions of excitement surfaced on their faces. What a powerful party! Although just barely, they actually cleared the Dark Gold test. They'll have a good time inside the World Summit. Not only would they gain the key to open Dark Gold shrines, but they can also visit a few Fine Gold shrines. It's a pity that they're a 5-man party. If they were a 3-man party instead, they'd have enough time to visit 2 Dark Gold shrines even if their test just barely made the mark for Dark Gold rank. If they hurry, they might even get to enter 3 Dark Gold shrines. Even so, it's already a good result. After all, the previous few parties have cleared the Fine Gold test. Envy and admiration filled the players below the altar as they looked at the party on it. There were also some that pitted the party. Based on everyone's reactions, it was clear that they were all familiar with the World Summit's entrance test. Even without the system's notifications, these players could guess the rank of the test the party of 5 undertook. No wonder they said that parties get more time. So, this is the case. Realization dawned on Shifeng as he watched the battles on the altar. After watching several parties of demon players challenge the entrance test, he more or less understood how the party test worked. Compared to the individual test, the party test presented players with a considerable advantage. For the individual test, players were required to go up against 10 monsters simultaneously. For the party test, regardless of its size, players would have to go up against only 20 monsters simultaneously. Of course, there were also downsides for challenging the party test. First, the monster's minimum standard one could challenge in the party test was different. For the individual test, the weakest monster available for players to choose from was a common monster, whereas the weakest monster available for the party test was a special elite. Second, it was far more difficult for parties to achieve the Dark Gold rank in their tests. For example, when Shifeng challenged the test, he was able to achieve the Dark Gold rank just by challenging 1 Lord and 9 chieftains. Parties needed to challenge a minimum of 1 Great Lord, 5 High Lords, and 14 chieftains. The difficulty for parties was considerably higher. Players were able to exhibit greater strength in a group than monsters though. If a party of 5 had a good class configuration, such as having 1 MT, 1 healer, and 3 DPS, the party would have a good chance at clearing the Dark Gold party test. Moreover, the entrance test allowed external items. Only summoning scrolls and personal guards were barred. Hence, it wasn't impossible to clear a Dark Gold party test. Among the several parties Shifeng had watched clear the Dark Gold party test thus far, most of them had relied on magic scrolls and special tools. A party of 3 approached Shifeng's group while they were waiting for their turn. However, these 3 players didn't pay any attention whatsoever to Shifeng. Instead, their gazes focused on Hidden Soul. Soul, I didn't expect you to come here. I suggest that you give up on the quest this time. The Sin of Wrath will obtain that item. Or do you really think that you can clear the epic test even with a hanger-on in your party? A 2-meter-tall, cloaked man carrying a massive, pitch-black broken blade said, laughing as he looked at Hidden Soul. You are courageous to waste 2 slots by coming here. If not for your elder brother strongly recommending you, you'd never have obtained the position you have today. I believe that things would get interesting if your brother found out about this. Upon hearing the robust man's words, Hidden Soul's complexion darkened. Entering the World Summit wasn't an easy task. There were only a limited number of quests assigned by Demon Kings. As a result, it would be very difficult for players to enter the World Summit. Demon players would normally only use up their chance to enter the World Summit after gathering a party of 3 or 5. The matter this time was relatively urgent. If she didn't obtain that item, she wouldn't be able to achieve her following goals. Hence, she had no choice but to enter the World Summit with only one of her subordinates. Skyhawk, don't go thinking that you wraths are amazing. We'll show you who's the truly strong one later on, Brute Spear said as he stood forward and looked at the man carrying the broken blade. Isn't it obvious who's the stronger party here? Brute Spear, I advise you to join the Sin of Wrath. You'll have a much better future here. Do you think you can achieve anything by following a new commander? The man named Skyhawk said, glancing at Brute Spear. It just so happens that it's our turn to take the test now. We'll let you take a close look at the difference in strength between us. Skyhawk and his 2 companions walked up to the altar and began their test. As a 3-man party, it would be difficult for them to clear the Dark Gold test. The trio had chosen to challenge the Epic test instead anyway. 1 Grand Lord, 4 Great Lords, and 15 chieftains appeared above the altar. The instant these monsters appeared, a commotion erupted below the altar. Who are these 3? Crap! That's a Grand Lord. Could those 3 be challenging the Epic test? Everyone was dumbfounded by the difficulty of the test Skyhawk's party had challenged. Only a few of the parties that challenged the entrance test managed to clear the Dark Gold test. Most of these parties had only just barely managed to clear the test after using all sorts of tools. This was the first time they were seeing anyone challenging the Epic test. The moment the battle began, the trio took a Tier 3 magic scrolls from each of their bags, a defensive scroll, a large-scale destruction magic scroll, and a domain scroll. The monsters that appeared above the altar had much lower HP than ordinary monsters. They also possessed monotonous skills, making them relatively easy to kill. Before using the 3 magic scrolls, the trio simultaneously used their berserk skills. Then, they each took out and drank a potion. The mana surrounding them went berserk. The burning mana potion? Sherphone was slightly surprised when he saw the potion the trio consumed. The burning mana potion was a master-ranked potion. When consumed, the potion ignited one's mana and tripled the effectiveness of their skills and spells. The potion only had a short duration of 6 seconds. It was a very rare and powerful berserk potion. While Skyhawk's group prepared, the 20 combat puppets didn't idle around either. However, before the combat puppets could even get close to the 3, they were stopped by a magic barrier. Not even the Grand Lord combat puppet could shake the magic barrier. A domain skill descended on the combat puppets, reducing the monster's basic attributes by 40%. Immediately after, an arc of golden lightning descended from the sky and bombarded the combat puppets, instantly killing all 15 chieftains. In the blink of an eye, only 1 Grand Lord and 4 Great Lords remained on the altar. Although the 5 remaining combat puppets only lost a small portion of their HPs, the large-scale destruction spell injured them badly, their combat power decreasing even further after the domain skill weakened them. The Guardian Knight standing on Skyhawk's right moved forward and used an AoE taunt, instantly securing the aggro of the 6 combat puppets. The Cleric standing on Skyhawk's left continuously cast healing spells on the Guardian Knight. Skyhawk controlled the 5 thorny vines summoned by his domain skill and continuously bombarded the combat puppets with attacks, each attack dealing tens of thousands of damage. Meanwhile, even the Grand Lord ranked combat puppet only had a maximum HP of 16,200,000 after being weakened. After a few short minutes, the remaining 6 combat puppets collapsed to the ground. Skyhawk's party smoothly cleared the epic test. They're too strong! Who are these people? Everyone below the stage was dumbfounded. When the previous parties had challenged the entrance test, they had ended up dead tired by the time they had completed it, yet despite challenging an epic test, Skyhawk's party cleared it without breaking a sweat. Standing on the altar, Skyhawk sent Hidden Soul a provocative glance before laughing and stepping down from the stage to rest. It was as if he had said, "Can you do that? Damn it! When did they gather such a set of Tier 3 magic scrolls?" Brute's spear growled in frustration as he looked at Skyhawk's party. Envy flashed in his eyes. Although Hidden Soul didn't comment, she didn't look pleased. "It'll be our turn in a moment. I've already stated our goal. We aim for epic rank. If you wish to withdraw, you can do so now. I won't try to force the matter. You've already seen the difficulty of the epic test. If you wish to continue, I only have one request, although I don't know how powerful you are exactly, and that is to figure out a way to distract one great lord," Hidden Soul said as she turned to Sherfone. Truthfully, the epic test was far more difficult than she had expected. Although she had prepared, she wasn't confident of clearing the test. Players only had one opportunity to challenge the entrance test during each visit to the World Summit. If they failed, they would have to wait until they returned. "There are no problems on my side." Sherfone nodded. Epic rank had been his goal all along. "Commander, you see? I knew I picked the right person," Brute Spear said and laughed when he saw Sherfang's unwavering attitude. Hidden Soul simply smiled and didn't say anything else. After another party finished their test, Sherfang's group's turn to challenge it finally arrived. "All right, let's go." Hidden Soul started walking towards the altar. Chapter 1567 Different Goals. Chapter 1567 Different Goals. Chapter 1567 Different Goals. As Sherfang's three-man party ascended the altar, Skyhawk and the others, who rested and recovered their concentration and stamina before the mountain, turned to watch. "Commander, Hidden Soul's party is up next." "What a joke! An assassin, a berserker, and a swordsman? Do they really plan to challenge the epic test with that kind of party configuration? If she really lets these slots go to waste, not even her brother can help her keep her position." After sending Hidden Soul a contemptuous glance, Skyhawk closed his eyes and focused on recuperation, paying no attention to the upcoming battle. He had severely depleted both his stamina and concentration in the previous intense battle. Although the World Summit was a relatively safe place, it was not completely void of danger. He had to remain in peak condition. As soon as Sherfong stepped on the altar, the sound of a system notification reached his ears. "System, defeat all enemies before you, and you will be granted entry to the World Summit. System, as a three-man party, you will gain 30 minutes for every special elite killed, 100 minutes for chieftains, 500 minutes for lords, 1,000 minutes for high lords, 2,000 minutes for great lords, and 5,000 minutes for grand lords. System, your party must choose 20 monsters to face. If you are unable to defeat your opponents, you will die. System, as a three-man party, the party leader may choose 10 monsters, while party members may choose 5 monsters each. The chosen monsters will prioritize the players that chose them. Your party has 10 minutes to consider. Failure to do so will result in automatic forfeit. You will die if you forfeit. Based on our previous discussion, I'll choose 1 Grand Lord and 9 chieftains. Brute, you'll choose 3 Great Lords and 2 chieftains. Maple Leaf, you'll choose 1 Great Lord and 4 chieftains. Try to buy as much time as possible. Brute and I will deal with the chieftains as quickly as possible, and then we'll focus on your Great Lord," Hidden Soul said as she looked at Sherfong. "Understood." Sherfong nodded. Sherfong hadn't given Hidden Soul and Brute Spear any of the names he usually used. Instead, he had given them a fake name that he had thought up on the fly. The World Summit was a paradise of treasure. It was also a hub for demon players. It certainly wasn't a good idea to expose either his Yi-Fong ID or Black Flame ID. Hence, he had decided to use another name to avoid complications. Moreover, he had the Nightwalker's cape. Even if others used high-ranking identification skills on him, they couldn't see through his concealment. When Sherfong nodded, Hidden Soul chose her monsters. However, once Sherfong chose his Great Lord, he didn't immediately select 4 chieftains. Instead, he chose 1 Grand Lord and 3 chieftains. Now that he had the rare opportunity of joining a party in the World Summit, he had to earn as much time as possible. After all, he needed to secure a large number of God crystals, not just one or two. Even though an epic party test would award a lot of time, it wasn't enough for his purposes. Moreover, since Hidden Soul and Brute Spear were confident of dealing with their own monsters, trading one chieftain for a Grand Lord wouldn't matter much. By the time Sherfong finished with his selection, Hidden Soul and Brute Spear had finished choosing their monsters. Following which, they quietly waited for their chosen monsters to spawn. When their allotted 10 minutes ended, a magic array formed above the altar. Combat puppets then dropped from the magic array. Once the 20 combat puppets had spawned, gasps filled the air. What? More players are challenging the epic difficulty? Huh! Wait. Why are there 2 Grand Lords? Did they select one by accident? That shouldn't be the case. How could they possibly mess up such an important decision? If they really made a mistake, they'll lose their lives. Everyone below the altar was dumbfounded when they saw the combat puppets. In their opinion, the epic party test was already difficult enough. Adding a single Great Lord would amplify the test's difficulty, not to mention adding an extra Grand Lord. Although Skyhawk's party seemed to have cleared the epic test relatively easily, it had been the result of precise calculation. The Guardian Knight had only tanked 1 Purgatory puppet and 4 Magisteel puppets due to the domain skill's suppression. However, had there been 1 more Magisteel puppet, the Guardian Knight would not have been able to maintain his HP above a safe margin. In that case, Skyhawk's party would have likely died before the combat puppets. The players weren't the only ones who were stupefied. The sudden arrival of 2 Grand Lords on the altar stunned Hidden Soul and Brute Spear. Purgatory Puppet, Grand Lord. Level 49. HP 27,000/27,000,000. Magisteel Puppet, Great Lord. Level 49. HP 16,000/16,000,000. Silver Puppet Chieftain. Level 49. HP 1, 400,000/1, 400,000. It seems that I guessed correctly. Sherfong could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw the combat puppet's levels. He was currently level 60. To current players, this was an absurdly high level, and he wanted to keep this from others. However, the World Summit's entrance test decided the trial monster's levels based on the highest leveled player in the party. Hence, Sherfong had utilized the growth system and temporarily lowered his level to the next highest leveled player in the party. Although doing so would reduce his basic attributes, it would not affect the quality of his equipment. This mechanic had been created to allow high-level players to help their lower-leveled companions grind and level quickly, as players of significantly higher levels would take the majority of a monster's EXP. Now, however, this mechanic had helped Sherfong avoid exposing his level and lower the difficulty of the test. Has Hidden Soul lost her mind? Skyhawk was astonished when he saw the 2 Purgatory puppets on the altar. He had personally experienced the power of a Purgatory puppet. Although it didn't have as much HP as a normal Grand Lord, its combat power was the real deal. If not for the Tier 3 domain skills suppressing and attacking the Purgatory puppet, his party wouldn't have defeated the Grand Lord. Based on his information, the Sin of Pride shouldn't have any Tier 3 domain scrolls. Even if Hidden Soul had won, how could a berserker like Brute Spear possibly hold 2 Grand Lords on his own? Hidden Soul's party didn't even have a healer. Everyone was flabbergasted. But what they didn't know was that Hidden Soul was more confused than any of them. However, once the combat puppets appeared, they didn't give Hidden Soul much time to consider the surprising development. Immediately, the 20 combat puppets charged at the 3 players before them. "Commander, what should we do?" Brute Spear panicked. "We don't have any other choice. We'll use our Berserk skills and the 2 Mana Soul Crystals. Then we'll use Tier 3 magic scrolls to kill the chieftains. Kill as many as you can." Hidden Soul gritted her teeth as she took a crystal shard from her bag that radiated a dark purple glow, and threw it on the ground. Reluctantly, Brute Spear retrieved a similar crystal shard and did the same. When the 2 Mana Soul crystals shattered, the space around the party grew stagnant. As a result, the approaching combat puppets' movements stiffened slightly. At the same time, their basic attributes decreased by 20%. Unfortunately, despite being weakened, the purgatory puppets were still significantly stronger than great lords of the same level in terms of attributes. Meanwhile, although both Hidden Soul and Brute Spear wore top-tier equipment, their attributes could only rival a great lord of the same level even after they activated their berserk skills. They were still no match against the weakened purgatory puppets. Despite knowing this, however, Hidden Soul clenched her jaw and fought with everything she had. Both Hidden Soul and Brute Spear simultaneously used a Tier 3 magic scroll, with one containing a control spell, and the other containing a large-scale destruction spell. The scrolls temporarily immobilized all of the combat puppets, but after the large-scale destruction spell struck, the silver puppets still had over 50% of their HPs remaining. Seeing this, Hidden Soul quickly took out and used another large-scale destruction magic scroll. In quick succession, Hidden Soul used 3 Tier 3 large-scale destruction magic scrolls, killing all chieftain-ranked silver puppets. Although the large-scale destruction spells dealt a lot of damage, their effects were no match for those that Skyhawk had used after consuming the mana-burning potion. As a result, Hidden Soul's large-scale destruction spells a moment later, both purgatory puppets arrived before Hidden Soul and only heavily injured the Great Lord-ranked Magisteel puppets. As for the Grand Lord-ranked purgatory puppets, they had only lost some HP, their bodies were still intact. Brandishing their one-handed sabers against the female assassin, each of the purgatory puppets had 2 pairs of arms, so Hidden Soul had to face 8 sabers simultaneously. As the purgatory puppets attacked, they sealed off all paths of retreat. Seeing this, Hidden Soul had no choice but to activate Wind Steps and utilize the brief period of invulnerability the skill granted to block the incoming attacks and retreat. She planned to kite the Grand Lords, since fighting them head-on would be suicidal. Unfortunately, before she could get 10 yards away from the monsters, both purgatory puppets caught up with her. One purgatory puppet appeared beside her and sent an energy slash to cut off her path, while the other attacked from behind. So fast. Realizing that she couldn't advance, Hidden Soul spun around and met the purgatory puppet behind her. Hidden Soul gracefully avoided half of the purgatory puppet's dozen or so attacks. She deflected the remaining strikes with her daggers and used the force to push her away from both puppets. At the same time, she also used the force of the attacks to push herself away from both purgatory puppets. As a result of deflecting several of the purgatory puppets' attacks, Hidden Soul lost over 8,000 HP. After activating her berserk skill, Hidden Soul only had slightly more than 90,000 HP in total. Hence, she couldn't ignore such high damage. Yet, seconds after Hidden Soul escaped from the pincer attack, the other purgatory puppet leaped powerfully and arrived before her, launching yet another pincer attack. And here I thought Hidden Soul was strong enough to actually challenge 2 purgatory puppets. She's definitely going to die. Her party wouldn't be able to hold its ground against 1 purgatory puppet. They don't even have a healer. The suppression they're using against the puppets isn't strong enough. Even if they used regeneration potions to recover their HPs, they wouldn't last long. In the end, no matter what they do, they'll still die. That's right. She has overestimated herself. Does she think she can do anything just because she has high combat standards? The Guardian Knight and Cleric in Skyhawk's party quietly ridiculed Hidden Soul as they watched the female assassin desperately flee from the 2 purgatory puppets. As for Skyhawk, he no longer bothered to pay attention to the battle on the altar. The outcome of this test was already evident. Is this the end? Hidden Soul could not help her bitter smile when she saw that her HP had fallen below the 30% threshold. The 2 purgatory puppets launched another 2-pronged assault against the assassin, but just as everyone assumed the battle would end, the air above the altar rippled. Suddenly, the purgatory puppets, Hidden Soul, and Brute Spear felt weaker. A shadow then appeared behind one of the purgatory puppets, followed by a blue flash. The purgatory puppet was abruptly thrown over a dozen yards away, slamming into the altar as it landed. Maple? Seeing this, Hidden Soul and Brute Spear turned to their mysterious companion with wide eyes. Chapter 1568 Mysterious Demon Expert. Chapter 1568 Mysterious Demon Expert. Chapter 1568 Mysterious Demon Expert. Shifeng's sudden interference stunned every watching player. Impossible! That's a Grand Lord! What did he do? Grand Lords had an overwhelming strength advantage against Tier 1 players of the same level. At this stage of the game, aside from peak MTs, players could barely block a Grand Lord's attack after activating a Berserk skill. Yet, not only had Shifeng blocked the Purgatory Puppet's attack, but he had also sent it flying. Before anyone could react, Shifeng moved again and appeared before the other Purgatory Puppet. His sacred sword curved past the puppet's 4 sabers and struck the Grand Lord's chest. Like a bullet, the Purgatory Demon's body shot backward upon coming into contact with Killing Ray, smashing into the ground after flying across over a dozen yards. At the same time, a damage of over -20,000 appeared above its head. In the blink of an eye, Shifeng had successfully pulled Hidden Soul from her precarious situation. Shifeng then used the Aura of Water's life domain, recovering 10% of both Hidden Soul and Brute Spear's HP every second for 30 seconds. Before Hidden Soul could say anything, Shifeng got ahead of her and said, "We don't have time. I'll make things simple. We need to deal with these 2 Purgatory Puppets before our Berserk skills end. Otherwise, they'll whittle us down until we die. From now on, I'll tank both Grand Lords while you attack with everything you've got." Although the Purgatory Puppets had far less HP than a normal Grand Lord's, they still had a base HP of 27 million. Even after the Mana Soul Crystals and Disintegration Field Suppression, both Purgatory Puppets had retained 60% of their basic attributes, putting their HPs at 16,200,000. This meant that they would recover 162,000 HP every 5 seconds. Even if all 3 players attacked the 2 Grand Lords with everything they had, it would take a considerable amount of time to defeat them. Furthermore, only 2 of them would be free to fight the Purgatory Puppets as Brute Spear was busy with the Great Lord-ranked Magisteel Puppets. They had to make good use of every second they had. Fortunately, after stepping up to the altar, the disintegrated debuff suppressing Shifeng's basic attributes had disappeared, which allowed him to fight at his peak. Even so, he needed to activate a Berserk skill to suppress a Grand Lord of the same level. Once his Berserk skill's duration ended, fighting the Purgatory Puppets would become far more troublesome. Hearing this, Hidden Soul realized the severity of the situation. She nodded and mentally pushed away the questions plaguing her mind. By this time, the 2 Purgatory Puppets had recovered from Shifeng's attacks, staring at the swordsman with emotionless, crimson eyes. The Grand Lords then released out an angry bellow, their sabers flashing as they emitted scorching, emerald flames. This move was none other than the Purgatory Puppet's trademark move, Purgatory Blade. It seems the Purgatory Puppets are finally getting serious. It'll be even more difficult to take them down now. When the spectating crowd saw the emerald flames dance on the sabers, they unconsciously gulped. Not only did Purgatory Blade increase the might of the Purgatory Puppet's attack significantly, but it also improved the Grand Lord's attack range and attack speed. Skyhawk's party had relied on their Guardian Knight's life-saving skill to stand against the Purgatory Puppet's Purgatory Blade, and Skyhawk had used a portion of the thorny vines he had summoned with his Tier 3 domain skill to help block the attacks. Only after doing so had Skyhawk's party managed to survive through the Purgatory Blade's 20-second duration. However, Shifeng's party did not include an MT. It didn't have any healers either. Defending against the Purgatory Puppet's skill would be far more difficult for their party. The Grand Lord's attack range bonus from the skill was also terrifyingly vast, making their attacks impossible to dodge. "I'll aggro one," Hidden Soul hurriedly declared after seeing the Grand Lords activate Purgatory Blade. "It is impossible for non-MT classes to tank both at the same time." Their party's situation wasn't like Skyhawk's. Skyhawk's party had only faced 1 Purgatory Puppet, whereas their party had to deal with 2. When Skyhawk's Purgatory Puppet had used Purgatory Blade, even the Guardian Knight nearly died after activating a life-saving skill. Needless to say, the Grand Lord's attacks would annihilate any other class. No! I can hold both of them by myself. You just need to focus on dealing damage, Shifeng said, grinning as he dashed at the two approaching purgatory puppets. At the same time, he activated the Abyssal Blade's Phantom Kill. Suddenly, Shifeng split into two copies of himself. Each copy then moved to take on a purgatory puppet. A doppelganger? Hidden Soul was stunned when she saw Shifeng split into two. She had never considered that he would have such a skill. Although a doppelganger's basic attributes were than the main bodies, a doppelganger's death wouldn't affect the player. Hence, using the doppelganger to waste a purgatory puppet's skill was definitely a wise decision. If the player controlled their doppelganger properly, it might even last through the purgatory blade's 20-second duration without mishaps. As Hidden Soul pondered, she was shocked yet again. Both Shifeng and his doppelganger brandished their swords and clashed with the purgatory puppet's emerald sabers. When the opposing weapons collided, not only did Shifeng and his doppelganger successfully block the attacks, but they also held their ground. In the end, both Shifeng and his doppelganger blocked every one of the dozen or so attacks each purgatory puppet launched. Although the two swordsmen lost some HP as the emerald fire burned them, the damage was insignificant with Life Domain's recovery effect. Seeing this, the spectating crowd was dumbfounded. What's going on? Is that really a doppelganger? Aren't doppelgangers supposed to have weaker attributes than the main body? That doppelganger seems just as powerful as the main body. Crap! That guy can actually keep up with the purgatory puppet's rapid attacks while controlling both his body and his doppelganger. What kind of reaction speed does he have? Amazing! No wonder they dared to challenge two purgatory puppets. An expert. He is definitely one of God's Domain's monster-level experts. Does anyone know who that is? I know quite a few expert demon players, but I've never seen such a powerful swordsman. As the battle on the altar progressed, the crowd's interest in Shifeng grew exponentially. This was the first time they had ever seen a swordsman block two Grand Lords of the same level by himself. Many of the demon players present even considered trying to befriend Shifeng. The competition was far more intense between demon players than it was between ordinary players. They placed far more value on strength. This was due to the extreme difficulty of the quests demon players had to complete. If they could befriend a demon expert like Shifeng, the man might even help them with their quests. With his help, they could rise through the demonic noble ranks. Isn't he the player that Hidden Soul randomly invited into her party? How is he so strong? Skyhawk was astounded as he watched Shifeng hold his ground against two purgatory puppets. The strength Shifeng displayed was simply terrifying. Is he some trump card Hidden Soul deliberately hid? Experts of Shifeng's caliber were incredibly rare, not to mention a demon player of such caliber. In Skyhawk's opinion, Hidden Soul must know Shifeng personally. While the spectating crowd voiced their opinions of Shifeng, the two purgatory puppets steadily lost HP. Once Purgatory Blade ended, Shifeng could occasionally launch counterattacks while blocking the Grand Lord's strikes. Every one of his ordinary attacks easily dealt over minus 20,000 damage, while his skills dealt over minus 60,000. When he used skills such as Shadow Blade and Flame Burst, his damage soared past minus 100,000 per hit. Meanwhile, Hidden Soul attacked one of the two purgatory puppets in a frenzy. From time to time, when most of her powerful skills were on cooldown, she attacked with tier 2 or 3 magic scrolls. As a result, the purgatory puppet she targeted lost HP rapidly. Midway through the battle, though, the duration of Shifeng's doppelganger ran out. As a result, Shifeng was forced to deal with two purgatory puppets personally. Fortunately, he had an advantage over his enemies with his attributes, so he could still tank the two combat puppets without much issue. Only his DPS suffered as a result. Fortunately, under Hidden Soul's full-powered assault, the duo defeated one of the purgatory puppets after 5 minutes of continuous fighting. Defeating one also alleviated the pressure on Shifeng. Since he used the power of darkness, the attribute enhancement remained intact even after fighting for so long. In contrast, Hidden Soul's berserk skill had long since ended, and she had no choice but to transform into her demon form to increase her combat power. When Phantom Kill's cooldown ended, Shifeng summoned his doppelganger once more, significantly increasing their total DPS. In the end, Shifeng still had 1 minute with Power of Darkness by the time the final Purgatory puppet collapsed. As for the remaining Great Lord-ranked Magisteel puppets, Shifeng's basic attributes were far superior even without a berserk skill. Furthermore, his berserk skill was still active. Following which, Shifeng easily pushed around the Magisteel puppets. When the final Magisteel puppet died, the crowd below the altar fell silent. These players only recovered from their daze after a few seconds. Shifeng and his 2 companions heard the sound of a system notification. Chapter 1569 Inferior Legendary Rank. Chapter 1569 Inferior Legendary Rank. Chapter 1569 Inferior Legendary Rank. As the final Magisteel puppet's HP reached 0, both Hidden Soul and Brute Spear breathed a sigh of relief. "Commander, we succeeded!" Brute Spear excitedly announced. They had merely intended on giving the entrance test a try. After all, they already knew how difficult the Epic Party test was. Moreover, their party's configuration wasn't particularly favorable, which only lowered their success rate. They never thought that they would actually defeat the 2 Purgatory puppets and pass the entrance test. "That's right, we succeeded." Even Hidden Soul, who had maintained a solemn expression, could not help but reveal a joyful smile. She then shifted her gaze to Shifeng, the questions she had previously suppressed resurfacing in her mind. Now that she thought about it, she hadn't chosen 2 Purgatory puppets accidentally. It was also unlikely that the system had made an error. Moreover, Shifeng had been calm when he faced the 2 Grand Lords as if he had expected the situation. This proved that the swordsman had chosen the extra Purgatory puppet. Moreover, Shifeng should have no information about her or Brute Spear's strengths, yet he had made such a decision. This proved that Shifeng was confident in his own capabilities to take down 2 Purgatory puppets. Not only was Shifeng such a powerful swordsman, but he was also capable of reaching the world's summit. Based on what she knew, God's domain didn't have an expert like this man. Someone so powerful wouldn't be able to hide their identity from everyone. Meanwhile, Skyhawk's party stared at Shifeng and Hidden Soul in astonishment. "How is this possible? They actually did it! Commander, what should we do now? They killed 1 more Purgatory puppet than we did. They definitely have more time than us." The Guardian Knight and Cleric in Skyhawk's party panicked when Hidden Soul's party cleared the test. Time was everything in the World Summit. Players with more time would find more opportunities to grow stronger, and this was especially true as players tried to reach the epic shrines. Gaining an additional 5,000 minutes would give a team enough time to enter at least 4 more additional epic shrines. Although I don't know where that woman found such a powerful team member, more time won't help them find that item. Skyhawk wore a twisted, ugly expression. Immediately he commanded, "All right, we've rested enough. Let's enter the World Summit." Saying so, Skyhawk approached the World Summit's entrance. Hee. "Commander, look. It seems that Skyhawk can't sit still any longer. He's in such a rush to leave," Brute Spear said, laughing in delight as he watched Skyhawk's party depart. However, unlike Brute Spear, Hidden Soul had lost interest in Skyhawk's party as questions about Shifeng's identity filled her mind. As she was about to move forward and thank Shifeng, the sound of a system notification reached her ears. "System, you have completed the SS rank difficulty test. Rewarding Inferior Legendary Shrine Key. Time awarded increased by 40%. You have received 8,480 minutes. An Inferior Legendary Shrine Key and 8,148 minutes?" Hidden Soul was stunned. Immediately, she looked at the system notification window to confirm that the announcement hadn't been a hallucination. She had never expected such a bountiful reward. Based on her calculations, the best performing party could only learn around 7,000 minutes after completing an epic party test, yet despite her party's average performance, she had earned over 8,000 minutes. Most importantly, the shrine key was inferior legendary rank. This was the first time she had ever heard of such a key. One could only open a shrine of equal or lower rank with a high-rank shrine key in the World Summit. Without a key of corresponding or higher rank, players wouldn't be able to unlock the doors to the shrine. Even Shifeng was ecstatic. His performance had been the best in the party, and thus, he had received more time than his companions. In total, he had earned 13,580 minutes, 6 times the amount he had earned during his first visit. He would have ample time to search for God crystals in the World Summit. Brother Maple, we really have to thank you for your help. We'll be able to proceed with our quest far more smoothly. If you run into any trouble in the future, feel free to contact me. If you want to deal with someone, my commander and I can deal with most of God's domain's experts. Brute Spear said, grinning as he walked up to Shifeng. Hidden Soul nodded and expressed her agreement with Brute Spear's offer. She admitted that Shifeng was quite strong in a head-on confrontation. However, she was a professional with assassination and ambushing. She doubted that she'd lose out to Shifeng when focusing on a single target. All right. If I need anyone killed, I'll make sure to give you a call, Shifeng said, nodding. He did not try to reject Brute Spear's goodwill. Although the Flower of Seven Sins wasn't yet fully developed in God's domain, it wasn't an organization that ordinary superpowers had any hope against. Moreover, there wasn't any enmity between him and the organization. Most of the encounters he had had with the Flower of Seven Sins thus far had been due to other players hiring its services. Such dealings were very normal for an assassin organization. It was unlikely that the Flower of Seven Sins had a grudge against him. Shifeng added both Hidden Soul and Brute Spear as friends, but due to his demon mask, his name registered as Maple Leaf in their friends list. Now, if he really had to deal with someone in the future, he could ask Hidden Soul for help. Once the entrance test was over, Hidden Soul and Brute Spear decided to rest before entering the World Summit. The previous fight had taken a huge toll on their stamina and concentration. Shifeng, however, had no intention of resting. Instead, he parted ways with Hidden Soul and Brute Spear before entering the World Summit on his own. Shifeng hadn't wanted to avoid resting, but he didn't want others to discover his intentions. After some light conversation, Shifeng made his way towards the World Summit's main entrance. As he departed, Hidden Soul felt a little lost and crestfallen. Commander, we really got lucky. If we hadn't come across Brother Maple, we would have had to watch Skyhawk's party enter the World Summit and search for the item. If Skyhawk knew that we earned inferior legendary shrine keys, he'd lose his mind. Brute Spear said, sighing ruefully as he watched Shifeng's departing figure. It's a pity that Brother Maple seems to have some business of his own. If we could have convinced him to enter alongside us, we'd have a far better chance of obtaining that item. Commander, you should have at least tried to convince him. Who knows? He might have agreed. He's already helped us quite a bit. Don't get too greedy, Hidden Soul said as she eyed the grinning berserker. Commander, the boss has been looking for an expert to help him for a while now. Why don't we recommend Brother Maple? With his strength, Brother Maple shouldn't have any issue catching the boss's eye, Brute Spear said. Not only would Brother Maple be able to help out the boss, but he might even be interested in that matter. Perhaps. Hidden Soul nodded in agreement. While Hidden Soul and Brute Spear conversed, Shifeng arrived in the World Summit. The World Summit was far more lively than it had been during his previous visit. Plenty of players even occupied the bronze area. Some players were even fighting over shrines. But Shifeng had no intention of staying in the bronze area, and he charged towards the top of the mountain. Although he had acquired a lot of time, he could still fail to find enough God crystals to remove the mysterious power suppressing the disintegration armor. He couldn't afford to waste a second on low-quality shrines. Without any hesitation, he dashed towards the epic shrines. However, as Shifeng was about to climb the staircase to the next area, an enchanting beauty with 3 pairs of pitch-black wings appeared before him. As the woman hovered in the air, she radiated an aura that suggested that she could triumph over all beings. This woman was none other than the fallen angel Serena. Interesting. Someone has finally obtained the inferior legendary shrine key after so long? Serena smiled as she gazed down at Cherphone. Chapter 1570, Life Rating. Chapter 1570, Life Rating. Chapter 1570, Life Rating. Serena's appearance immediately attracted the attention of every player in the World Summit. In truth, it was difficult not to notice her. Serena was a Tier 5 fallen angel. When she wasn't deliberately trying to suppress her aura, she could immobilize Tier 1 players with that alone. Even Cherphone was afraid of Serena despite standing so far away from her. The fallen angel's presence dominated the area as if she owned it. Since someone has obtained the inferior legendary shrine key, activate the divine staircase. Serena's voice echoed throughout the World Summit. Every player in the World Summit could hear her clearly. If you wish to obtain power, perform exploits that even the gods will acknowledge. When Serena fell silent, the World Summit began to tremble. One pitch-black shrine after another rose from the ground. They hovered in the air and were connected by pitch-black staircases. This spiral chain of shrines extended to the World Summit's peak. The formation of these spiraling shrines had lasted several minutes, and throughout the process, not a single player had moved from where they stood as they watched these shrines form in awe. Why did an NPC suddenly show up? What is this NPC trying to do? Could this be an event? What's the divine staircase? When the spiraling shrines were complete, a grounded, pitch-black shrine manifested among the many bronze shrines. The various players launched into a heated discussion about what this could be. Everyone was curious about the divine staircase Serena had mentioned. Shortly after, quite a few players approached the first black shrine. An inferior legendary shrine key? Is Hidden Soul's party responsible for triggering this divine staircase? Skyhawk, who was already relatively high up the mountain, looked at the new pitch-black shrines with shock and envy. Not only had Hidden Soul earned a large amount of time, but she had also obtained an inferior legendary shrine key. Thinking up to this point, he immediately commanded his companions. Let's go! We have to take a look at the new shrine. At this point, he could do nothing about the inferior legendary shrine key. After all, it was a bound item. But he could get a clear idea of the divine staircase's function. When players reached the grounded shrine, they examined the rules on the stone monument beside it. These players instantly revealed excited expressions. God! This divine staircase is amazing! Damn it! If I knew something like this would happen, I would have waited to come to the World Summit. These players gazed at the stone monument as if they were looking at a peerless treasure. How generous! Cherphone was just as surprised when he read the divine staircase's rules. Unlike the shrines around the World Summit, the divine staircase's shrines didn't require corresponding keys or time to unlock. Rather, players had to rely on their own power to ascend to the next shrine. Since it didn't cost time to climb the divine staircase, players could explore its shrines as long as they had time remaining. However, the number of times they could climb the divine staircase depended on the type of shrine key the players carried. Players could only climb the divine staircase once if they had a bronze shrine key, while mysterious iron keys would allow players to climb the staircase twice. Secret silver keys granted players 3 entries, fine gold keys granted 4, dark gold keys granted 5 entries, epic keys would allow players to climb 7 times, and inferior legendary keys allowed players access to the divine staircase 10 times. However, once players exhausted their entries, they'd be forced out of the World Summit regardless of how much time they had remaining. Meanwhile, each time players cleared a pitch-black shrine, they would earn a corresponding number of shrine points. They could then use these shrine points to purchase various items available in the World Summit. Players didn't need any specific qualifications to purchase these items. As long as they had the required number of points, they could buy any item they wanted. Cherphone wouldn't have been overly surprised if the items available were merely top-tier weapons and equipment, even epic weapons and equipment. The World Summit had plenty of epic shrines, and as long as players cleared the epic ranked entrance test, they could easily obtain epic items from the appropriately ranked shrines. What surprised Sherfong was the fact that players could use these SPs to improve their life rating. It was common knowledge in God's domain that improving one's life rating was extremely difficult. Improving one's life rating wasn't just a matter of a stronger physique. Rather, it was a life transition. For example, if one compared an archaic species to a normal human being, the archaic species' basic attributes would be several times higher than a human's of the same level. This was the difference of a higher life rating. This was also why archaic species became more difficult to deal with as they rose in level. Although players could improve their life ratings by upgrading their tiers, the improvement was minuscule. For example, an ordinary Tier 5 player's life rating was only slightly higher than an ordinary Tier 1 player's. This was also the reason that Tier 5 players were significantly weaker than Tier 5 monsters. The attribute difference wasn't much during the early levels, and players could easily close the gap with top-tier weapons and equipment. However, as players rose in levels, particularly after passing level 100, the advantage of a higher life rating would become apparent, and would only become more evident as players progressed in the game. At which point, players might be able to kill other players of higher tiers, but they'd be dreaming if they thought they could take out monsters of higher tiers. Only after reaching Tier 6 would players truly transition. Tier 6 players' life rating was worlds apart from ordinary Tier 5 players. At Tier 6, players would also qualify to challenge Tier 6 gods. Meanwhile, players could actually improve their life ratings with the shrine points from the Divine Staircase. Why wouldn't Sherfong be shocked? Based on his knowledge, the players that had managed to improve their life ratings by other means than upgrading tiers had been exceedingly rare even after 10 years in God's domain. Even if players found some way to do so, it would be incredibly difficult, and they'd have to rely on luck and strength. In the past, God's domain's various superpowers had fought frequently over such opportunities. By securing such an opportunity, they could give their players a better chance of reaching Tier 6. In fact, the benefits of improving one's life rating were even more valuable than ordinary legendary items. Sherfong had never thought that the Divine Staircase before him would be such an opportunity. However, when he saw the price of improving one's life rating, he was speechless. Even the cheapest Bloodline required 100,000 shrine points and 1 exploit. Passing the first pitch black shrine only awarded 10 SPs. Although the others would award more, one still had to pass a considerable number of shrines to accumulate enough SPs to purchase the Bloodline. Furthermore, Sherfong had no idea of how to perform an exploit, and the rules didn't mention anything about it. Even if he collected 100,000 SPs, without an exploit, he wouldn't be able to purchase a Bloodline to improve his life rating. Meanwhile, players could purchase various other items, such as potions, designs, recipes, mounts, siege weapons, god crystals, and other precious items. There were even fragmented legendary items up for trade. Naturally, the fragmented legendary items were extremely expensive. Even the cheapest cost 70,000 SPs, while the more expensive items could cost up to 240,000 SPs and 3 exploits. Moreover, players had to spend the SPs they earned with each visit, as their counter would reset to 0 when they returned. Fortunately, exploits were permanent, and would only disappear when players spent them or deliberately deleted them. In other words, if players had a certain item in mind, they had to earn enough SPs in one visit to purchase it. Even so, the crowd before the first Black Shrine drooled over the prospects of treasure. After all, fragmented legendary items were practically illusory to current players. In fact, there hadn't been any news of a super guild obtaining one thus far. Suddenly, many players dashed into the first shrine and began their ascension. Sherfong didn't dawdle either, entering the shrine before him. This was a rare opportunity to secure a bloodline for himself, and he had plenty of time. It'd be a huge waste if he didn't attempt it. Chapter 1571, Realm Lord. Chapter 1571, Realm Lord. Chapter 1571, Realm Lord. As soon as Sherfong set foot in the pitch-black shrine, his environment transformed. It felt as if he had just stepped through a teleportation gate and arrived in an entirely different space. A dark forest loomed before him, and the howling of wolves occasionally echoed in his ears. In the darkness of night, he faintly saw pairs of crimson eyes flicker in the treetops. This is a survival battle? Sherfone wondered as he observed his surroundings. Although it was night here, his vision was unaffected. He could see around him as clearly as if the sun hung above him. Sherfone spotted over a dozen werewolves armed with crossbows and in excellent equipment standing in the trees around him. In addition, he spotted another dozen or so werewolves with spears and great swords beneath the tree's cover, radiating an intense killing intent. All of these werewolves were level 55 or above, with the highest at level 58. They ranged between elites and special elites. If an ordinary player attempted to take all of these monsters on by themselves, they'd definitely be torn apart. As Sherfone observed these werewolves, the sound of a system notification reached his ears. System, clear this divine shrine to obtain a reward. When the system notification ended, a system map appeared in the corner of Sherfang's vision. A teleportation point had been marked on the map in the heart of the forest. It was obvious that he had to reach said teleportation point to leave the divine shrine. However, before Sherfone could examine the map closely, the werewolves in the treetops began to attack, the triple-loaded crossbows releasing their bolts at him simultaneously. At the same time, the werewolves on the ground began to close in, forming a tight encirclement around him. How troublesome. It seems that the system banned teleportation skills, as well. I guess I have no choice but to run to the target. When Sherfone had noticed the werewolves' attacks, he had attempted to use space movement, teleporting to the destination directly. Unfortunately, teleportation skills were prohibited in the divine shrine. He had no choice but to unsheath Killing Ray and retaliate. A rain of bolts from above might be troublesome to ordinary players, but to Sherfone, the bolts were practically negligible. He easily dodged the bolts and appeared before a level 56 elite werewolf in the blink of an eye. He lightly swung Killing Ray at the melee-focused werewolf. Shadow Blade. Numerous streaks of shadows cut past the elite werewolf, each hit dealing several tens of thousands of damage. Like a cannonball, the 2-meter-tall werewolf's body shot backward and slammed into the werewolves behind it. The monster only returned to the ground after flying over 20 yards. By the time it landed, however, its HP had reached 0. Its body turned to ash and disappeared, leaving several copper coins in its place. These monsters actually drop loot? Sherfone was slightly confused to see the copper coins on the ground. He had assumed that he'd be striving for nothing here. This was a kind of test, and tests normally didn't provide loot. However, Sherfone did not bother to kill the other werewolves. Instead, he swiftly maneuvered out of the circle of werewolves, heading straight for the teleportation array in the forest's heart. Combat players like Sherfone were no stranger to survival battles in God's domain. These situations were common in dungeons. If players focused on defeating the monsters in survival battles, they'd only get caught up in an endless cycle of combat, wasting their time. Sherfone, of course, didn't have a lot of time to waste, and even if he could kill these monsters easily, he'd still consume stamina. If he ran out of stamina midway through a battle, he'd become a sheep for the slaughter no matter how powerful he was. As he headed deeper into the forest, the werewolves went into a frenzy, chasing after him. However, Sherfone was simply too fast, and even the special elite-ranked werewolves could only watch as the distance between them and their target grew until the swordsman eventually left their sight. After a few more minutes of running, Sherfone reached the teleportation array in the heart of the forest. However, before he could approach the array, he felt a chill crawl down his spine. The cause of this creeping sensation was none other than a one-eyed werewolf with a massive greatsword that guarded the teleportation array. A realm lord? Sherfone stared at the one-eyed werewolf in shock. This one-eyed werewolf was over 3 meters tall, and although it was only a level 58 special elite, the mana circling it was extraordinary. It felt like this land's protected child. Spectre Werewolf, Realm Lord, Humanoid Creature, Special Elite, Level 58 HP 4, 200, 000/4, 1,200,000. In God's domain, the title of Realm Lord did not represent a monster's rank or bloodline. Rather, it was a buff that greatly enhanced the monster's skills and spells. Monsters with this title also had strengthened physiques and HPs. Basically, they were boss-like existences among monsters of the same level and rank. Realm Lords were not particularly rare in God's domain, but they were usually only found in level 50+, resource-rich maps. They protected these resource maps, and as long as they remained in their designated maps, they could display far more combat power than monsters of the same level and rank. Normally, player teams avoided Realm Lords as much as possible. Fighting these monsters simply wasn't worthwhile. Despite being so much stronger than monsters of the same level and rank, Realm Lords didn't offer additional or better loot. Is the Divine Shrine itself some sort of opportunity? After a moment of surprise, Shifeng's lips curled into a smile. When players had first discovered Realm Lords in the past, they had avoided these monsters as much as possible. Unfortunately, some battles were unavoidable, and players had been forced to kill certain Realm Lords. As players had killed more Realm Lords, they discovered something astonishing. The Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment. Only Realm Lords dropped this item, and there was no way to obtain the crystal fragments from other monsters. On its own, the Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment did not possess much of a function. At most, it could be used as a support material when crafting weapons and equipment, but when players synthesized the Mana Barrier Crystal Fragments into Mana Barrier Crystals, their value rose by over 100-fold. The Mana Barrier Crystals were the various NPC cities' main power source for their teleportation magic arrays. Not only did the Mana Barrier Crystal contain a frightening amount of mana, but it could also replenish itself by absorbing the mana around it. Only, the Mana Barrier Crystal required a considerably long time to replenish itself. However, this replenishment time would vary depending on the mana density around it. In an ordinary environment, for example, an empty Mana Barrier Crystal would require 48 hours to recover fully. To put it simply, a Mana Barrier Crystal was akin to an everlasting magic crystal. It was the perfect power source for teleportation arrays. With enough Mana Barrier Crystals, one could operate a teleportation array for no cost. It was easy to imagine how valuable these Mana Barrier Crystals were. After all, Mana Barrier Crystals were not that easy to obtain, yet the various large guilds and players were in dire need of them. Meanwhile, the special elite-ranked Realm Lord before Shifeng was a walking mana source. Without hesitation, he charged forward, showing no intentions of circling the Spectre Werewolf and leaving the Divine Shrine. As Shifeng boldly approached, the Spectre Werewolf howled in anger. It raised its great sword and swung the massive weapon at the impudent intruder. Over a dozen magical wind blades formed before the Spectre Werewolf and shot towards Shifeng. The attacks were spread out, making it impossible for Shifeng to dodge them all. Fortunately, the disintegration armor wasn't currently suppressing Shifeng's basic attributes. In other words, his strength was even higher than a great lord's of the same level. Hence, although the Spectre Werewolf's Realm Lord status enhanced its wind blades, and the attack nearly rivaled the power of a Tier 2 spell, they were insignificant to Shifeng. Sword's Orbit. A galaxy of stars formed around Shifeng, striking down the approaching wind blades. Shifeng didn't even pause as he continued towards the Spectre Werewolf. Shadow Blade. Thunder Flame Explosion. Flame Burst. When Shifeng reached the Spectre Werewolf and began to bombard it with attacks, the special elite's 4,200,000 HP drained like flowing water. Despite the Spectre Werewolf's struggles to fight back, it was powerless to change its fate. In the end, Shifeng's swords devoured its HP. It then collapsed, transforming into a dark mist and scattering in the wind. The berserk mana, which had surrounded the Spectre Werewolf, calmed as a result. At the same time, a pair of level 50 bronze plate armor boots, a dark crystal shard, and several dozen copper coins appeared on the ground. Although the loot was not particularly impressive, Shifeng's eyes glowed when he saw the dark crystal shard. This shard was none other than the Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment. Chapter 1572, Blackwater Visits. Chapter 1572, Blackwater visits. Chapter 1572, Blackwater visits. Sure enough, the Divine Shrine's tests are also opportunities. Shifeng smiled as he collected the Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment. Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment, consumable, can be used to increase mana. A support tool for crafting items. Obtaining Mana Barrier Crystal Fragments wasn't easy, and although the item had a high drop rate, it didn't drop from every Realm Lord. Meanwhile, Realm Lords were even rarer than field bosses. High-resource leveling maps only had 2 or 3 Realm Lords. In addition, these Realm Lords' respawn time was much longer than ordinary field bosses. When the various large guilds had discovered the benefits of killing Realm Lords in the past, many guild wars had broken out over these monsters. Obtaining 1 Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment after killing a single special elite ranked Realm Lord was a huge boon from the system. Each Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment had sold for around 30 gold in the past. Of course, most guilds that had obtained these crystal shards had refused to sell them. When players collected 10 crystal fragments, they could seek out an NPC master alchemist to synthesize the Mana Barrier Crystal with a 40% success rate. If the synthesis were successful, one would have an everlasting magic crystal. The Mana Barrier Crystal was a priceless treasure, useful in multiple aspects, such as powering teleportation arrays, magic towers, and other such constructions. There had even been a few workshops that had specialized in hunting Realm Lords and distant maps, making a living from selling Mana Barrier crystals. After obtaining the crystal fragment, Shifeng moved towards the teleportation array and left the forest. When he opened his eyes again, he had arrived at the first Divine Shrine's exit, and the staircase leading to the second shrine stretched before him. Many players were already running towards the second Divine Shrine. So many people are already out? Shifeng was surprised. Over 100 players were already approaching the second Divine Shrine. However, after giving the matter some thought, he realized that he had spent quite some time fighting the Spectre Werewolf. Most, if not all, of the players before him had likely avoided fighting the Realm Lord. They had simply slipped past the Spectre Werewolf to enter the teleportation array. As Shifeng left the first Divine Shrine, the sound of system notifications reached his ears. System, congratulations! You have passed the Divine Shrine. Rewarding 10 shrine points. System, congratulations! You have passed the Divine Shrine within the time limit. Rewarding 10 shrine points. System, congratulations! You have killed the Guardian boss within the time limit. Rewarding 50 shrine points. So many points! Shifeng was somewhat taken aback when he saw how many points the system had awarded for killing the Spectre Werewolf. Passing the Divine Shrine had only earned him 10 SPs, yet killing the special elite ranked Spectre Werewolf had awarded 50. If these other players realized that killing the Guardian boss would award even more points, they'd likely regret their earlier actions. Even the cheapest item available for purchase in the Divine Shrine cost 500 SPs. If one cleared the first Divine Shrine quickly and ignored killing the Guardian boss, they would only receive 20 SPs. With that method, who knew how many Divine Shrines one would have to clear to accumulate 500 SPs? Moreover, as players climbed the Divine Staircase, the Divine Shrines would become more challenging. If players did not earn as many points as possible early on, it would only become more difficult to earn the points they needed later. It seems that I'll have to defeat every Divine Shrine's Guardian boss. Thinking up to this point, Shifeng realized the fastest way to earn shrine points from the Divine Staircase. Following which, he proceeded towards the second Divine Shrine. The second shrine contained a gravel ridge, and its monsters ranged between level 55 and 58. However, the second shrine had far fewer elite monsters, and nearly half the shrine's monsters were special elites. Next to the Realm Lord, a few level 58 elites guarded the teleportation array. To Shifeng, however, this slight increase in difficulty was no issue. He had only spent a few minutes to defeat the Realm Lord and 3 elites. This time, however, he did not obtain a Mana Barrier Crystal Fragment. He had only obtained a level 55 Bronze Mage Top and some coins. Upon clearing the second Divine Shrine, Shifeng earned 15 SPs. He also received 15 SPs for clearing the shrine within the time limit, and 70 SPs for killing the Guardian boss. Although Shifeng had cleared the second divine shrine, he was clearly lagging behind the other players. Even those who had entered the first divine shrine sometime after him were already on their way towards the third shrine. However, Shifeng did not rush. Instead, he continued to ascend the divine staircase at his own pace. Each divine shrine was a little more challenging than the last and awarded 5 more SPs when cleared. When Shifeng entered the 5th divine shrine, the test's difficulty visibly increased. Now, every monster he faced was a special elite. In terms of attributes, the monsters were on par with well-equipped, Tier 1 players of the same level. When facing a dozen or so of these monsters at once, even elite players would be in a bind. Even the Guardian boss was now a chieftain-ranked Realm Lord. Not only did the chieftain possess 10 million HP, but its skills also carried great destructive power. Even Shifeng did not dare to meet the boss's attacks head-on. Shifeng only defeated this Guardian boss after a dozen or so minutes of fighting. Meanwhile, as a chieftain-ranked Realm Lord, the boss had been very generous. It had dropped 2 mana barrier crystal fragments, instantly increasing Shifeng's haul to 4. Now, he only needed 6 more fragments to synthesize a mana barrier crystal. When Shifeng had cleared the 5th divine shrine, the shrine points he earned also undergone a qualitative transformation. The clear reward alone rose to 100 SPs, while clearing the shrine within the time limit awarded another 100 SPs, and killing the Guardian boss within the time limit awarded 500 SPs. However, the ranking lists before the various divine shrines also reported that players had already reached the 8th shrine. There were over a dozen players clearing the shrines with astonishing speed. Meanwhile, while Shifeng continued to challenge divine shrines, Zero Wing City's fame in Starmoon Kingdom had exceeded Stone Forest Town's. The city had become a holy resting ground for many of the kingdom's players. Due to the city's high mana density, the double EXP buff accumulation, and the large number of wandering merchants, it took no time at all for Zero Wing City's player population to break past 1 million. The originally empty city was now so lively that Zero Wing City could rival major NPC cities. Guild Leader Singular, Zero Wing City's player population has grown past 1 million. The city is even charging players an entrance fee. Its daily income is incredibly high. With this, I don't think that it'll be easy to whittle Zero Wing down anymore, Lei Jingyang reported. He currently rested in one of Zero Wing City's restaurants, wearing a frown as he watched the crowded street outside. Initially, he hadn't cared about Zero Wing City, but after visiting the city personally, he had to admit that it was extraordinary. Young Master Lei, although Zero Wing City is better than we expected, Zero Wing's celebration of the fact will be short-lived. Singular Burial chuckled. He didn't seem to mind the fact that Zero Wing City earned considerable wealth for the guild. Don't tell me you plan to fight it out with Zero Wing? Lei Jingyang frowned at Singular Burial's reaction. He had expected Singular Burial to finish Zero Wing off in a few more days, but clearly, that plan was no longer viable. Not only did Zero Wing City earn a considerable amount of profit for its ruling guild, but the city improved Zero Wing's reputation among players. At this rate, Heaven's Burial could never destroy Zero Wing in a short 3 to 5 days. Of course not, Singular Burial said, shaking his head. Although Zero Wing has achieved great success, at the end of the day, its foundations are shaky. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Representatives from the Blackwater Corporation contacted me not long ago, informing me that they are willing to help us against Zero Wing. The Blackwater Corporation? Lei Jingyang was visibly moved when he heard this. Why are they suddenly interested in Zero Wing? The Blackwater Guild had changed drastically. It now had stronger forces under its command and ample funding. Just some time ago, it had even established a guild town in a resource-rich, neutral map. Even super guilds avoided any conflict with the guild. I don't know why either, but this doesn't change our plans to take down Zero Wing, Singular Burial said, chuckling. Taking a look at the time, he continued. Blackwater's representatives should have arrived in Starmoon City by now. I should return to meet with them. Suddenly Aqua Rose, who was currently busy managing Zero Wing City, received a message from Yaya, stating, Big Sis Aqua, a few people claiming to be representatives from the Blackwater Corporation have requested a meeting with our guild's upper echelons. Should I have them wait in the guild residence? Chapter 1573, Domineering Aqua Rose. Chapter 1573, Domineering Aqua Rose. Blackwater? Why are they here? Aqua Rose grew curious as she read Yaya's message. It had been quite some time since Zero Wing had dealt with the Blackwater Corporation. According to her information, Abandoned Wave's actions had only been the Blackwater Corporation's attempt to test God's domain's waters. Afterward, the events with Zero Wing, Blackwater quickly gave up on Abandoned Wave, and the man had vanished without a trace. Blackwater then focused its development in the distant Iron Empire, taking control of the Empire after forcing several superpowers out of the competition. Logically, Blackwater should have no reason to leave the safety of the Iron Empire and travel all the way to Star Moon Kingdom to seek out Zero Wing. Hence, Aqua Rose found the situation strange. However, Aqua Rose decided to send Yaya to entertain Blackwater's representatives while they waited in one of the guild residence's reception rooms. She then dropped what she was doing and made her way to meet these individuals. A man and a woman waited in one of the elegant guild residence reception rooms in Zero Wing City. Zero Wing's elite members, who had been sent to wait on these two, stood quietly in the corner of the room, clearly tense. These elite members weren't tense just because of the two visitors' extraordinary identities, but because of the chilling aura they radiated. They could not help but feel like they stood before a pair of lions as they involuntarily shuddered. Moreover, both representatives were very high-leveled. The man was a level 49 elementalist, and the woman was a level 48 shield warrior. Even the most inferior piece of equipment these two wore was level 45 dark gold rank. The male elementalist even wore 3 pieces of epic equipment, appearing as if he were wrapped in a constant layer of fire. In fact, due to this man's presence, the reception room's temperature had risen quite a bit. When Aqua Rose and Yaya entered the room, the man's aura flared with even greater intensity. It was clear he wanted to intimidate Aqua Rose. Unfortunately for him, his biting cold aura had no effect on the Zero Wing Vice Guild leader. Hello, I am Aqua Rose, one of Zero Wing's Vice Guild leaders. May I know what business Blackwater has with our guild? Aqua Rose asked, smiling at the male elementalist with the intimidating aura. As expected of Zero Wing's Vice Guild leader, your guild's reputation is well-deserved. The male elementalist praised when he saw the lack of hesitation in Aqua Rose's response to his intimidation. I had thought that our guild leader's decision to send us as representatives was unnecessary. However, it seems that Zero Wing indeed qualifies for such a move. Thank you for the praise. Now, may I know what business your guild has with Zero Wing? Aqua Rose calmly repeated, paying the male elementalist's arrogance no heed. Moreover, the man before her earned his arrogance. Aside from the fact that this man was backed by the Blackwater Corporation, he radiated an aura that felt dangerous to Aqua Rose. After her promotion to Tier 2, she rarely felt such a feeling from other players, and any player who felt this way was a peak expert, capable of holding important positions in super guilds. My name is Falling Fire, the Vice Commander of Blackwater's 3rd Main Force. I have come here with a message for Zero Wing from our guild leader. Hand over Yulan and her companions, which you have chosen to shelter, and half of Zero Wing City's profits. Do that, and we can ignore the previous events. Otherwise, deal with the consequences at your risk. The man named Falling Fire informed Aqua Rose. Smiling, he continued, although your guild has performed well in a few major wars thus far, your strength is only effective against small guilds. We'll give you 1 day to consider our offer. I'll be waiting for your reply. Hand over Yulan and the others? As Aqua Rose listened to Falling Fire's message, she came to understand the gist of the situation. When she realized what Cherphone had done, she was flabbergasted. It was no wonder why Yulan had seemed so worried. It turned out that she was wanted by Blackwater. That's right. You only have 1 day to consider. As for Zero Wing City's profits, I'll send specialists to keep an eye on your city. Falling Fire nodded. In his opinion, Blackwater had no reason to go out of its way to warn Zero Wing. With the guild's strength, it could easily flatten this small, upstart guild. While Zero Wing's past performance had been astonishing, that only held true for first-rate guilds and smaller. To superpowers like Blackwater, Zero Wing was insignificant. Furthermore, Zero Wing was currently preoccupied with its war against Heaven's Burial. One day to consider handing over Yolan's group and half of Zero Wing City's profits? Aqua Rose could not help but laugh when she heard Falling Fire's words. I see. I understand now. Since that is the case, you two may return to your guild. What do you mean by that? Falling Fire's expression darkened when he saw the woman's smile. What do I mean? Have I not made myself clear enough? You can return, and tell that guild leader of yours that he can forget obtaining 50% of Zero Wing City's profits. As for Yolan's group, they have already joined Zero Wing. You're even less likely to take them from us. If Blackwater is looking for an opponent, although Zero Wing is very weak, we are more than willing to keep you company. Aqua Rose said straightforwardly. Watch your step on your way out. I won't be sending you off. When Aqua Rose finished speaking, the reception room was deathly silent. Falling Fire stared at Aqua Rose in shock. He even wondered if he had heard her wrong. Zero Wing was in the middle of a war of attrition with Heaven's Burial. Now it dared to declare war on Blackwater. Even Yaya, who silently stood beside Aqua Rose, gaped in astonishment. She had never realized that her vice-guild leader was so domineering. The Blackwater Corporation was a titan both in and out of God's domain. In the real world, it was an incredibly famous international corporation. In God's domain, it had successfully wrestled control of the Iron Empire from several superpowers. Zero Wing simply couldn't compare. Good. Very good. Since Zero Wing dares to cast aside the opportunity we've presented, you can wait until we remove your name from God's domain. Falling Fire sneered at his host. Immediately, he and the level 48 female shield warrior stood and left the room. After the duo from Blackwater left, Yaya turned to Aqua Rose with a reverent expression. Big sis Aqua, you're so amazing. You even slapped Blackwater in the face. The look on that guy's face just now was priceless. Yaya said with admiration flashing in her eyes. That's right. It felt wonderful putting those bastards in their place. However, how am I supposed to report this to the guild leader? Aqua Rose felt a headache begin to brew. For a moment of satisfaction, she had declared war on Blackwater without consulting Sherfone. Zero Wing City was just starting to get on the right track. The wealth the city earned even allowed Zero Wing to fight Heaven's Burial on equal footing, but if Blackwater joined the fray, Zero Wing would be at a severe disadvantage. Meanwhile, back in the World Summit's Divine Staircase, Sherfone had finally defeated the 10th Divine Shrine's guardian boss, a level 60, Lord-ranked 5-headed demon snake. Before landing the killing blow, he had made sure to activate Divine Providence. When the 5-headed demon snake died, items rained from the sky. Normally, level 50 monsters and above had significantly reduced drop rates. However, the demon snake had dropped over 20 items. No Lord-ranked monster of this level should be capable of dropping so many. A jackpot? Sherfone was overjoyed when he saw the loot on the ground. He had only used Divine Providence to increase his chances of obtaining mana barrier crystal fragments, yet he had triggered a jackpot. He truly hadn't expected such a bountiful reward. In God's domain, jackpots were exceedingly rare for monsters past level 50, much less from Realm Lords. Chapter 1574, Advanced Forging Design. Chapter 1574, Advanced Forging Design. Aside from weapons, equipment, and mana barrier crystal fragments, a tattered sheet of parchment rested among the many items the 5-headed demon snake had dropped. As the parchment itself was very high quality, it still radiated faint pulses of mana despite the ravages of time. Sherfone picked up the parchment out of curiosity. This is an advanced forging design. Sherfone was elated when he realized what this sheet of parchment was. In God's domain, every advanced design was extremely rare and valuable. This was because advanced designs contained techniques unknown to the general public. For example, an advanced forging design would contain a few different kinds of advanced forging techniques. If players learned these techniques, they'd increase their chances of creating a new item in the future. The various large guilds had cherished their advanced designs in the past. They had all refused to sell these designs. At the same time, the large guilds' trading firms had fought over these items. Zero Wing had only obtained a few advanced designs thus far, including advanced forging designs. Moreover, the design in his hands was not just any ordinary advanced forging design. Conqueror's Armor Forging Design Fragment, Advanced Design, Fine Gold Rank. When learned, you will be able to produce the level 50 magic rune armor. Every piece of crafted armor contains a magic array. 5 pieces can be used to form the basic strength battle array. Current fragment count 1/9. I never expected the divine shrines to drop something like this. I've really lucked out this time. Sherfoam was at a loss for words as he stared at the Conqueror's armor design. Not only had the 5-headed demon snake dropped 2 mana barrier crystal fragments, but it had also dropped a fine gold equipment design that came with a battle array. Killing the demon snake had been far more profitable than killing a level 60 Grand Lord. A well-equipped peak expert in God's domain wasn't a force to be reckoned with. In fact, despite being an individual, they were capable of playing a significant role in a guild war. However, that did not mean ordinary players were utterly helpless against peak experts. Ordinary players still had a method they could use to fight peak experts. Battle arrays. If a certain number of players wore equipment with the same battle array, they could trigger the battle array's effects, significantly increasing their combat power. Battle arrays provided more than just a boost to basic attributes. They also improved players' physiques. Most importantly, it allowed players with the same array to share their perception. This helped players remove defensive blind spots, visibly improving their combat standards. Although a basic battle array only allowed players to share a limited degree of their perception, it still elevated players' combat standards to a whole new level. Many of God's domain's small guilds in the past had survived and thrived, even after 10 years, precisely because of battle arrays. Even without peak experts, guilds with powerful battle arrays could take down a peak expert with just a few players or a dozen or so working together. Some small guilds had even stood toe-to-toe with large guilds by relying on these arrays. Of course, battle arrays were not without weaknesses. In exchange for the huge boost in strength, players' stamina and concentration consumption increased massively. When players activated a battle array, their stamina and concentration would deplete several times faster than normal. This limited the amount of time that players had when using battle arrays. However, despite such a glaring flaw, battle arrays had been highly sought after by many guilds. Equipment with battle arrays was extremely rare, and usually only dropped from super large-scale team dungeons. Monsters in the fields had no chance of dropping such items. Moreover, the higher quality a piece of battle array equipment was, the more valuable it was. A piece of battle array equipment could easily sell for several times more than a piece of equipment of the same rank. Although he had only obtained a fragment of a level 50 fine gold battle array equipment design, it was still quite valuable. If he completed the design, its value would be immeasurable. Since the Divine Shrine's guardian boss dropped a fragment, the other shrines' bosses should have a chance of dropping them as well. As Sherfoam examined the Conqueror's armor design, he inwardly swore to complete it no matter what. Immediately he moved towards the teleportation array and proceeded to the next Divine Shrine. By the time Sherfoam appeared on the staircase leading to the 11th Divine Shrine, players had already reached the 15th. He was far behind. System, congratulations. You have passed the Divine Shrine. Rewarding 300 Shrine Points. System, congratulations. You have passed the Divine Shrine within the time limit. Rewarding 300 Shrine Points. System, congratulations. You have killed the Guardian Boss within the time limit. Rewarding 2,000 Shrine Points. However, although other players progressed faster than he did, Threefold contained the most SPs of any player in the World Summit. Currently, Threefold had already accumulated 8,960 SPs. If players ascended the Divine Staircase without defeating the Guardian bosses, even after reaching the 15th Divine Shrine, they would not have even half of Threefold's points. Time passed quickly, and the Divine Shrines became more difficult as Threefold climbed the Divine Staircase. By the time Threefold reached the 15th Divine Shrine, he had to face a Lord-ranked Realm Lord with a special bloodline. By the time he emerged from the 15th Shrine, many players had been eliminated in the 20th Shrine. As Threefold had guessed, the other Shrine's Guardian bosses had a chance of dropping the Conqueror's armor-forging design fragment if he activated Divine Providence when he killed them. By the time he had cleared the 15th Divine Shrine, he had gained another fragment. He just needed to wait for Divine Providence's cooldown to end before proceeding to the next Divine Shrine. As for Mana Barrier Crystal fragments, he now had 17. However, Threefold had grown a bit weary after fighting for so long. Taking a look at the time, he realized how long he had spent in God's domain. He then consumed a drop of life essence from the blood refining crystal to boost his stamina and concentration recovery before logging out of the game. Players' accumulated time in the World Summit only decreased when players were online. Logging off to rest would not affect one's progress. Hence, to maintain their combat efficiency, many players had long since chosen to log out. After all, challenging the Divine Staircase was a long and arduous progress, and as one climbed the staircase, they'd have to navigate larger maps in the Divine Shrines. As a result, players had to spend more time clearing the shrines. By the time Threefold logged out, the sun had risen high into the sky. The moment Threefeng's consciousness returned to his body, he was bombarded by a series of messages and call notifications. There were messages and calls from both Blackie and Aqua Rose. In fact, Threefold received another call from Aqua Rose before he had the chance to leave his gaming cabin. "What's with the urgency? Has something happened?" Threefold curiously asked after accepting the call. "Guild leader, you've finally picked up. Any later and I would have sent Blackie to look for you in person," Aqua Rose said somewhat anxiously. "While you were gone, Zero Wing City has developed nicely. The player population has already broken past the 1 million threshold. Once we finish constructing the NPC shops, the city will attract even more players. But some time ago, 2 representatives from the Blackwater Corporation sought me out. They told us to hand over Yulan and her companions and 50% of Zero Wing City's income as compensation. Otherwise, they'll turn the full might of the Blackwater Guild against us. Hand over Yulan, her companions, and 50% of Zero Wing City's profits?" Threefold frowned. The Blackwater Corporation's retaliation didn't surprise him in the least, but he didn't expect Blackwater to take action so quickly. Moreover, the corporation's timing couldn't be worse, targeting them while they were in a war of attrition against Heaven's Burial. This put Zero Wing at a considerable disadvantage. Chapter 1575, Nurturing Experts. Chapter 1575, Nurturing Experts. It seems that I'll need to speed things up, Threefold thought after hearing Aqua Rose's report. He was quite familiar with the Blackwater Corporation's power. He had witnessed its rise in God's domain in the past. Despite joining God's domain so late, Blackwater had still developed into a super guild quite quickly in the past. One could just imagine how frightening Blackwater's potential was. Furthermore, the Blackwater Corporation had invested in God's domain much earlier in this life. Blackwater's experts had already caught up with God's domain's mainstream players. Otherwise, it wouldn't have stood a chance against the other superpowers vying for the Iron Empire. Of course, Zero Wing didn't have much to be afraid of if the Blackwater Corporation focused on its development in the Iron Empire. Based on what he heard from Yulan, the guild had only recently taken control of the Empire. The guild was just starting to expand. Although Blackwater possessed plenty of experts and funding, it lacked the power to spread its influence across multiple kingdoms and empires as the various super first-rate and super guilds had. While the organization might be able to deal with small guilds right now, it couldn't touch Zero Wing. Unfortunately, that was only true if Blackwater worked alone. If it worked with Heaven's Burial, Zero Wing's situation would take a turn for the worst. Blackwater could leave the reconnaissance to Heaven's Burial while it supplied the guild with a large number of experts. Currently, players who wanted to grind and level up had to travel to distant maps, and most of the high-level maps weren't concentrated in a single area. Even if Sherfone used the 7 Luminaries Ring space movement, it would take a considerable amount of time to travel from one high-level map to another. "How much time have they given us to consider?" Sherfone asked. "1 day, but I let my anger get the best of me, and I rejected their offer instantly," Aqua Rose said in a subdued voice. "You rejected them?" Sherfone stared at Aqua Rose in surprise. "Did you really reject them?" Aqua Rose nodded silently, knowing that she had made a huge mess of things. By outright rejecting Blackwater's offer, she had undoubtedly created another powerful enemy for Zero Wing. "Ha! Good! Well done!" Sherfone could not help but laugh when he saw Aqua Rose's guilty expression. "Although Zero Wing is not very strong, we're never afraid of a challenge. If they want to come, let them. We'll fight it out." "Guild leader." Aqua Rose felt guilty and slightly touched by Sherfeng's words. Not only didn't he blame her in the slightest, but he also actively encouraged her. "All right, don't worry about it. This isn't the first time we've fought a superpower," Sherfone said, shrugging. "But be careful this time. Keep an eye on their movement at all times. Also, we need to push our guild members to complete their Tier 2 promotions. Every bit of help is useful. Have our guild's internal members focus on leveling quickly, so they can add to the guild's combat power. I'll prepare some top-tier equipment, magic scrolls, and advanced potions for our guild members to challenge their promotion quests. As for the guild's internal members, I'll help them level up with Summer," Aqua Rose said, nodding. Following which, Sherfone mentioned a few good grinding locations for Aqua Rose to use as she helped power level Zero Wing's internal members. The guild's internal members already had solid combat standards. They only lacked levels. Once they were brought up to speed, Zero Wing would have another batch of expert players to help defend it. When Sherfone finished his call with Aqua Rose, he proceeded to train with the guild's internal members. To help them improve faster, Sherfone even provided specific guidance to a few talented members. He even went so far as to use the 10 additional black cards he had acquired from the secret pavilion to train Yu Zipping and a few others. In such a way, Sherfone trained Yu Zipping and the other internal members during the day. When the sun set, he'd log back into God's domain and grind through the divine staircase. The greatest problem other players in the World Summit faced was the drain on their stamina and concentration, but Sherfone could rely on his life essence to boost his recovery rate, having no issues in this regard. The only real problem was the divine shrine's increasing difficulty. As a result, Sherfone had to take more time to clear each shrine. Initially, he had only spent 30 minutes on each divine shrine, though he spent most of that time waiting for Divine Providence's 30-minute cooldown to end. As he ascended the divine staircase, however, the amount of time he needed to clear each shrine gradually increased to 2, then 3 hours. After grinding for 4 consecutive days, Sherfone finally defeated the 29th Shrine's Guardian boss, a Great Lord-ranked Realm Lord. He had initially assumed that he'd earn more shrine points from each subsequent divine shrine he cleared, but that wasn't entirely the case. After the 10th divine shrine, the SP reward only increased once every 5 divine shrines, yet these shrines' difficulty constantly increased as he cleared the last. By the time Sherfone cleared the 29th divine shrine, he had only accumulated 86,360 shrine points. He was still roughly 14,000 points away from affording the cheapest bloodline. Fortunately, although he hadn't acquired as many shrine points as he had hoped, he had secured a decent number of mana barrier crystal fragments. When High Lord and Great Lord ranked Guardian bosses died, they'd drop at least 1 crystal fragment, but he had obtained up to 3 crystal fragments from a single boss. As a result, he had a total of 43 mana barrier crystal fragments. As for the Conqueror's armor design, he had collected 6 fragments thus far. He was only 3 fragments away from completing the design. He had also obtained over 100 level 50 to level 55 weapons and equipment. Their ranks ranged between bronze and secret silver, and although they weren't top tier, they were rare and valuable at this stage of the game. During this time, the White Tiger Dojo had also delivered the previously agreed 50 bottles of S-rank nutrient fluid and 20 million credits. Upon receiving the payment, Shifeng assigned Shadow Sword to take charge of the 500 apprentices from the dojo. These apprentices would train in Zero Wing City's battle arena, improve their skill completion rates in Stone Forest Town's advanced combat rooms, and level while grinding and questing each day. As a result, their combat standards steadily rose with each passing day. Unfortunately, Zero Wing's members had encountered group skirmishes with Blackwater and Heaven's Burial's experts in the fields, increasing the guild's expenditures. Despite the massive revenue source Zero Wing City had become, the situation took a heavy toll on the guild's funds. However, monetary compensation wasn't the guild's biggest problem, but the loss of top-tier weapons and equipment. Meanwhile, the guild only had a few teams capable of acquiring such items. Although Aqua Rose and the other core members had formed teams to hunt down the enemy experts, they hadn't obtained enough level 45 top-tier equipment to replenish the guild's stock. Guild leader, I'm afraid that our stock of level 45 top-tier equipment in the guild warehouse will run out at this rate. Many of the other large guilds in the kingdom have already surpassed our raid progress in level 50 team dungeons. Aqua Rose reported, clearly frustrated. Moreover, based on the latest reports, it seems that Blackwater has sent over 4,000 experts to target our players. Including Heaven's Burial's experts, our teams are suffering a massive disadvantage while grinding in the fields. If Shifeng were present, they might be able to slaughter Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's experts a few times by relying on his spatial gate, which would, more or less, make up for the guild's losses. Zero Wing's members were constantly ambushed in the fields, yet Tier 2 experts like her were limited in their ability to fend off every ambush. Unless their guild members stopped leveling and questing, there'd be no end to this problem. Moreover, level 45 top-tier equipment was required to raid level 50 team dungeons. If the guild warehouse ran out of such equipment, they'd have to stop raiding these dungeons. If this persisted, guild members might even lose interest in earning guild contribution points. If that happened, the guild would fall apart. Have Melancholic and the others focus on crafting level 45 equipment, and temporarily stop sales on level 45 secret silver and fine gold equipment. Use some of that stock to replenish the guild warehouse. If worst comes to worst, have Snow send some level 45 top-tier equipment from the branch guild, Shifeng said after giving the matter some thought. He had never expected Blackwater to be ruthless enough to send 4,000 experts. To make matters worse, that wasn't the guild's full strength. Blackwater's foundations had truly exceeded his expectations. Shifeng jumped back into his virtual gaming cabin, ignoring the fact that it was currently daytime and he was supposed to be resting. After logging back into God's domain, he immediately made his way to the 30th Divine Shrine. Chapter 1576 Divine Shrine's Opportunity. Chapter 1576 Divine Shrine's Opportunity. Once Shifeng entered the 30th Divine Shrine, the space before him transformed. Currently, he faced a dark cavern. The cavern was very large as a sports arena. Moreover, many tunnels led out of it. From time to time, he also spotted 1 or 2 lizard-man patrol squads moving in and out of these tunnels. Even the weakest lizard-man in these patrol squads was a level 58 special elite, while the strongest was a level 60 lord. The raid difficulty really has increased quite significantly. Shifeng frowned slightly as he observed the lizard-men. It's no wonder so many expert demon players had to stop after reaching the 30th shrine. Previously, even the strongest non-boss monster in the 29th Divine Shrine was only a level 60 chieftain. In God's domain, chieftain-ranked monsters were at the Tier 1 standard. Hence, current players, particularly demon players, could still have a relatively easy time dealing with chieftains. However, when a monster reached the Lord rank, they attained the Tier 2 standard and were capable of using Tier 2 skills. It might be fine if all a demon player had to deal with were 2 or 3 lords. The crucial point was that, based on what Shifeng could see, there was a total of 30 Lord-ranked lizardmen patrolling in the cavern alone. If one entered the tunnels, who knew how many more lords they would encounter? Against 30 Lord-ranked monsters, even a Tier 2 player would get overwhelmed easily, not to mention a Tier 1 player. An ordinary Tier 1 expert would be fortunate if they could survive even 10 seconds against such a large number of lords. It was no wonder many experts in the World Summit had their progress climbing the Divine Staircase halted at the 30th Divine Shrine. Currently, based on the ranking list Shifeng saw before he entered the 30th Divine Shrine, only 5 players had successfully passed the 30th Divine Shrine. After observing the patrol routes of the lizardmen, Shifeng activated the 7 luminaries' rings aura of wind and dashed towards the tunnel that the system map indicated provided access to the heart of the cave system. The patrol squads in the cavern moved in fixed patterns. From observation, Shifeng found out that there would not always be 30 patrol squads moving inside the cavern but only around 4 to 10 patrol squads most of the time. As long as he used the opportunity when only 4 patrol squads were present to enter the tunnel leading to the core area, he would attract the attention of only 2 lizardman patrol squads at most. In the next moment, Shifeng transformed into an afterimage as he dashed past 1 lizardman patrol squad. By the time the patrol squad reacted, Shifeng was already several yards beyond it. Very quickly, he zipped by the 2nd patrol squad as well and entered the core tunnel. However, the moment Shifeng set foot in the core tunnel, he felt the threat of death. Traps? As soon as Shifeng entered the tunnel, dozens of small magic arrays appeared along the tunnel walls. In the next moment, these magic arrays launched magical bolts of various elements. Although these magical bolts did not seem very powerful, each one contained enough power to rival a Tier 3 spell. Even a Tier 1 player geared in top-tier equipment would be killed instantly if struck by these bolts. In addition to these attacks, there were also 2 patrol squads of lizardmen chasing after him. Sure enough, the difficulty is very high. Upon seeing the dozens of magical bolts flying at him, Shifeng immediately understood the reason why so few demon players had made it through the 30th Divine Shrine. He quickly executed Sword's Orbit, striking down the bolts one after another as he continued advancing down the tunnel. Fortunately, the activated traps were effective not just against players but the lizardmen as well. When the lizardmen entered the tunnel, they were promptly bombarded by magical bolts from the traps Shifeng triggered, and sent flying back out of the tunnel. As the lizardmen had relatively high HP, they managed to survive even after being struck by what was effectively a Tier 3 spell. However, this situation also prevented them from pursuing Shifeng. Thus, they could only watch as Shifeng gradually disappeared from their sight. The path leading towards the core of the cave system was replete with various kinds of traps. From time to time, Shifeng would also come across other lizardman patrol squads. As a result, he progressed towards the core at a snail's pace. After walking for over 2 hours, he arrived at a spacious cavern with a stone altar sitting in the middle of it. Stone pillars carved with magic runes surrounded the altar. Meanwhile, above the altar was the teleportation array leading out of the Divine Shrine. At this moment, however, lizardmen were kneeling around the altar. At a glance, Shifeng spotted over 300 lizardmen. Although the majority of these lizardmen were only elite ranked, there were 9 Lord-ranked lizardmen in the mix. However, the Lord-ranked lizardmen were no longer the strongest monsters present, which was instead the staff-wielding lizardman standing at the stone altar. Currently, the staff-wielding lizardman appeared to be offering a prayer of sorts. Lizardman Chief, Realm Lord, Humanoid Creature, Grand Lord, Level 60 HP 42, 000, 000/42, 000, 000. Shifeng could not help but frown as he looked at the Lizardman Chief. The guardian boss of the 29th Divine Shrine had been only a level 60 Great Lord. Yet, in the 30th Divine Shrine, the guardian boss had actually become a Grand Lord. The increase in difficulty utterly exceeded Shifeng's expectations. Although the Lizardman Chief did not possess the HP of an ordinary Grand Lord of the same level, the enhanced spells of a Grand Lord ranked Realm Lord was no laughing matter. Even if Sherfong successfully blocked one of the Lizardman Chief's spell attacks with his weapons, there was a high chance that he would end up losing his life. Seeing this, Sherfong could not help but hesitate whether he should bypass the Lizardman Chief and head straight for the teleportation array or stay behind and defeat the Guardian boss. He was fully confident of directly passing the 30th Divine Shrine while keeping his life intact. However, he could not say the same if he chose to fight the Lizardman Chief. While he did not mind losing one challenge opportunity, he did have 10 chances after all. The crucial point was that players would still lose a level if they died inside the Divine Shrines. Fortunately, though, no items would drop upon death. A Grand Lord was in existence that served as the final boss of Team Dungeons. It was practically impossible for players to solo such an existence. Just as Sherfong was mulling over his options, the Lizardman Chief suddenly started chanting an incantation. The runes carved on the stone altar then lit up with a dark blue glow. The space above the Lizardman Chief also collapsed, forming a tunnel of sorts into the dark void. Immediately after, a golden tablet slowly descended from this shattered space. The moment this golden tablet appeared, the mana inside the entire cavern stirred. The tablet itself also released a powerful divine might that put immense pressure on the living creatures around it. This is a legacy tablet? Sherfeng's eyes focused on the golden tablet. For a moment, he even thought they were playing tricks on him. He had acquired quite a few legacy tablets thus far. Meanwhile, every tablet was a treasure that allowed players to learn combat techniques. However, the tablets he possessed were just bronze and silver ranked. Thus far, he had only seen one gold tablet before. Moreover, the said tablet had even been stolen by a mysterious Tier 5 NPC. One could just imagine the value of a gold-ranked secret technique tablet. Just as Sherfong was feeling surprised at the appearance of the gold tablet, the Lizardman Chief extended his hands and received the tablet. He then started chanting another incantation. This time, the Lizardman Chief caused an even greater commotion. The mana inside the entire cavern gathered at the stone altar and became so dense that it started transforming into white mist. At the same time, a threefold magic array also formed on the ground the stone altar sat on. This is a space-time teleportation magic array? What is he trying to do? Could he be trying to send the gold tablet to another location? Sherfong was very familiar with the threefold magic array that formed beneath the stone altar. However, he did not believe that the Lizardman Chief was going to leave the Divine Shrine. Hence, there was only one other possibility why the Lizardman Chief would need a teleportation array, to send something away. Since the Lizardman Chief had summoned the teleportation array immediately after receiving the gold tablet, it was highly likely that the Realm Lord was planning on sending the gold tablet away. This won't do. I can't let him send the gold tablet away. Sherfong steeled his heart and started sneaking his way over to the Lizardman Chief. A gold tablet was incomparably valuable. It was not something that bronze and silver tablets could compare to. Just a silver tablet was already enough to prompt the various superpowers to bloody one another's noses, all the more a gold tablet. If he missed out on this opportunity, who knew how long it would take before he came across another gold tablet? In fact, he might never come across another gold tablet again. Moreover, the divine staircase became increasingly difficult the higher one ascended. If he could not defeat the Lizardman Chief, then it was even less likely that he could defeat the guardian bosses of the subsequent divine shrines. Just as the Lizardman Chief was about to send the gold tablet out of the cavern, at the critical moment, Sherfong activated the Aura of Time's Forbidden Domain. Please work. Seeing that the space-time teleportation magic array was about to activate, Sherfong could not help but pray for his Forbidden Domain to succeed in stopping it. Chapter 1577, Threefold Suppression. Chapter 1577, Threefold Suppression. When Sherfong activated Forbidden Domain, a layer of black mist enveloped the entire cavern, the mist freezing the flow of all the mana inside the cavern. Meanwhile, due to the stoppage in the flow of mana, the space-time teleportation magic array, which was still in the process of activating, failed. The mana the teleportation array had gathered then began to leak out and scatter into the surroundings, which also caused the spatial tear above the stone altar to close. Good. Shifeng inwardly grew ecstatic when he saw the teleportation array disappearing. The space-time teleportation magic array, which was activated using the stone altar, was frighteningly powerful. Although Forbidden Domain could suppress mana, if a source of mana had an insuppressible amount of power, then Forbidden Domain naturally would be of no avail. Fortunately, the enhanced space-time teleportation magic array had yet to reach a realm where Forbidden Domain was ineffective. Meanwhile, the disappearance of the teleportation array had riled up every lizard man inside the entire cavern. Immediately, they all turned to look in Shifeng's direction. "Intruder! You dare interrupt this sacred ritual! Pay for your crime with your life!" The lizard man chief bellowed at Shifeng, a wrathful expression on his face as he thumped his tail furiously on the ground. Every lizard man present inside the cavern promptly charged at Shifeng. As for the lizard man chief, he gathered mana in his staff to destroy Shifeng's Forbidden Domain. Among the 300+ lizard men charging at Shifeng were 9 lords and 1 high lord. In the face of such a force, even an ordinary Tier 2 expert would shudder in fear. However, rather than feeling fearful, Shifeng smiled as he switched the aura of time to the aura of fire. He then unfurled the Crimson Tier 3 magic scroll in his hands. Meanwhile, contained within this magic scroll was none other than the Tier 3 large-scale destruction spell Flame Prison. Suddenly, fiery pillars shot up from the ground, trapping all the oncoming lizardmen in a prison of flames. Any lizardman that came into contact with the scorching flames received devastating amounts of damage, losing over 1 million HP every second. The spell's activation instantly killed the elite-ranked lizardmen. Meanwhile, before Flame Prison's duration was anywhere close to ending, Shifeng took out an Aqua Blue Tier 3 magic scroll. Ice Torrent! A torrent of water crashed down from the cavern's ceiling and impacted the ground heavily. Any living creature that came into contact with the water turned into an ice sculpture on the spot. The chieftain-ranked lizardmen, who had received critical damage from the initial wave of attacks from Flame Prison, had their remaining HPs thoroughly consumed, their frozen bodies shattering into tiny frost particles. Loot then scattered all over the cavern's submerged floor. After just a brief moment, only the 9 lords and 1 high lord remained of the lizardman army. How tough! Seeing that the lord-ranked lizardmen were already at critical HP, Shifeng followed up with Flame Domain. Although Flame Domain was not as powerful as a Tier 3 large-scale destruction spell, it was more than enough to deal with the lord-ranked lizardmen. After the 3 large-scale destruction spells descended, only the high lord-ranked lizardman captain remained of the 300+ lizardmen that charged at Shifeng. At this moment, though, the high lord had less than half of his HP left. Even so, Shifeng had no intentions of showing mercy, immediately advancing towards the lizardman captain. If it were during normal times, Shifeng would pay no attention whatsoever to a high lord-ranked monster. However, he currently had to deal with the Grand Lord-ranked lizardman chief. If he left the lizardman captain alone now, he might very well come to regret it later on. Currently, the lizardman chief was much more powerful than the Grand Lord-ranked purgatory puppets Shifeng had fought during the entrance test. The Realm Lord also possessed much greater HP. Moreover, Shifeng was alone right now, and the system disallowed the use of summoning scrolls. Hence, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill the lizardman chief, and he definitely could not afford even the slightest bit of carelessness. However, just when Shifeng arrived before the lizardman captain and was about to use Flame Burst to finish off the High Lord, numerous flame spears suddenly shot at him. Upon seeing this, Shifeng retreated in surprise. Boom! 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 When the flame spears impacted the ground, large craters immediately formed. What power! So, this is a Tier 3 spell cast by a Realm Lord? Shifeng was inwardly astonished as he looked at the flaming craters. It was self-evident that the Lizardman Chief had removed the effects of Forbidden Domain. Although the Lizardman Chief had cast only a Tier 3 spell, its power was already at the Tier 4 standard. If Shifeng tried blocking such a spell, he might very well lose his life in an instant. Meanwhile, As soon as Shifeng dodged the flame spears, flames started raining down from midair. At the same time, chains made of flames emerged from the ground and shot at him, giving him no chance to catch a breather. Whether it was the rain of flames or the flaming chains, both were spells capable of killing Shifeng upon contact right now. Damn it! Gritting his teeth, Shifeng activated Heavenly Dragon's power. He then executed the Tier 2 instant strike at the Lizardman Captain. In the blink of an eye, Shifeng's body disappeared from the trajectories of the Lizardman Chief's attacks and appeared before the heavily injured Lizardman Captain. Phantom kill! 9 Dragons slash! Shifeng held nothing back as he launched one powerful attack after another at the Lizardman Captain, who only had around 4 million HP remaining. Due to Heavenly Dragon's powers effect, Shifeng's strength attribute increased by 150%. His strength was now superior to even a Grand Lord's of the same level. There was also instant strikes effects, which increased his attack speed by 500% and damage dealt by 400%. In the next moment, damages exceeding -100,000 appeared above the Lizardman Captain's head one after another. Sometimes, a critical hit dealing over -300,000 damage would also occur. As Shifeng and his doppelganger hacked and slashed at the Lizardman Captain, they also activated Defensive Blade to block the spell attacks coming from the Lizardman Chief. The fight with the Lizardman Captain lasted only a matter of seconds. During this period, the High Lord had very little chance to counterattack. By the time the Lizardman Captain was dead, Shifeng and his doppelganger had mostly exhausted the block counts of their defensive blade. Although only the Lizardman Chief remained now, Shifeng did not dare to be careless. As a precaution, he stabbed the abyssal blade into the ground and activated Abyssal Curse. Suddenly, pitch-black shackles emerged from the ground beneath the Lizardman Chief's feet, binding the Realm Lord completely. The Realm Lord's basic attributes then began decreasing rapidly. However, the Lizardman Chief was not an easy opponent to defeat. With a shout, he shattered the restraints on his body and stopped his basic attributes from decreasing any further. In the end, the Realm Lord still retained 80% of his basic attributes, remaining a nightmarish existence to current players. However, Shifeng had long since expected such an outcome. He then activated Disintegration Field, causing the Lizardman Chief's basic attributes to plummet once more. Eventually, the Lizardman Chief's basic attributes fell to only 60% of their original values. However, Shifeng was still not satisfied with this result. He took out the Ring of Gospel and spent 5,000 magic crystals, activating World Projection. Threefold Suppression. If players in the outside world were to see this scene, their eyes would most likely fall out of their sockets. Shifeng had actually suppressed the Realm Lord Grade Grand Lord to the point where the boss possessed only 45% of his original basic attributes. Now, the Lizardman Chief was no different from a Great Lord of the same level. However, the Lizardman Chief was thoroughly enraged under Shifeng's threefold suppression. Waving his staff, he cast the most powerful spell in his arsenal, Hell Pythons. Suddenly, the Lizardman Chief's staff transformed into a bundle of flames, which then expanded and became 9 massive, flaming pythons that were fully under the Lizardman Chief's control. He still had such a trump card to play? Shifeng's complexion darkened when he saw the flaming pythons striking at him. Although he had yet to clash with these flaming pythons, he could already tell that they were not something a Tier 2 player like himself could hope to stop. Just when the 9 flaming pythons were about to come into contact with Shifeng, the latter suddenly split into 10 identical copies of himself. This move was none other than Divine Steps. Even if he left the 9 pythons alone, the latter would be able to attack only 9 targets at most at any time. With the flaming pythons distracted, Shifeng immediately made his way towards the Lizardman Chief. Thundering Flash. Flame Burst. Shadow Blade. Both Shifeng's main body and doppelganger attacked the Lizardman Chief in a frenzy. Although the Lizardman Chief was a Realm Lord, his basic attributes were now suppressed to the point where they only rivaled the Great Lords of the same level. Moreover, the Lizardman Chief did not excel in melee battles. As a result, the Lizardman Chief became no different from a punching bag to Shifeng, whose basic attributes were currently superior to a Grand Lord's of the same level. 99%, 95%, 90%. When Divine Steps ended, Shifeng took out a Tier 3 defensive scroll, Sacred Shield of Water, and used it. The defensive spell was capable of blocking Tier 4 attacks even for a short moment, let alone the Tier 3 attacks of the Flaming Pythons. By the time Hell Python's 20-second duration was over, the Sacred Shield of Water still had over a quarter of its energy remaining. Without the annoyance of the Hell Pythons, Shifeng had a much easier time dealing with the Lizardman Chief and was able to whittle down the Realm Lord's HP. When the duration of Heavenly Dragon's power ended, Shifeng promptly followed it up by activating Power of Darkness, maintaining his strength at the level of a Grand Lord. Meanwhile, every one of his normal attacks dealt over -30,000 damage to the Lizardman Chief and -80,000 for a critical hit. His skill attacks dealt over -100,000 damage each and -300,000 for a critical hit. However, Shifeng would occasionally be forced to block one of the Lizardman Chief's spell attacks with his weapons, losing 10,000 to 20,000 HP in the process. Fortunately, Shifeng had Life Domain and Void Shield to help him recover and block a portion of those attacks. Hence, he had no problems keeping his HP above a safe margin. The only real challenge he faced was that the high-intensity combat was depleting both his stamina and concentration at a severe rate. As the minutes passed by, the Lizardman Chief's HP steadily decreased. 50%, 30%, 10%. Despicable intruder! I will not let you win! The Lizardman Chief suddenly exploded in violent fury and tossed aside his staff. He then started gathering a stupendous amount of mana inside his body. Following which, not only did his body turn pitch black, but it also doubled in size. Mana madness? At this moment, when Shifeng looked at the Lizardman Chief, he could feel the threat of death from the Realm Lord. Actually, even if his mind did not warn him about the Lizardman Chief, his eyes could see very clearly just how dangerous the Realm Lord was right now. Despite the Lizardman Chief just standing still right now, the ground beneath the Realm Lord buckled and shattered from the intense aura his body radiated. The air surrounding the Lizardman Chief had also become extremely heavy as well as scorching hot. Roar! The Lizardman Chief bellowed and dashed forward, appearing in front of Shifeng in the blink of an eye. The Realm Lord then raised his massive arms and smashed down at Shifeng. Come! Shifeng had no intention of dodging the Realm Lord's attack. Instead, he activated the Tier 2 Blade Liberation, increasing his basic attributes once more. Shadow Blade. Suddenly, several streaks of shadow merged with the slash Shifeng executed using Killing Ray, the combined attack landing squarely on the Lizardman Chief's fists. Boom! Shifeng was forced to retreat by only half a step from the resulting impact. In contrast, the Lizardman Chief's arms got flung away, leaving his scaly chest wide open to attack. Moreover, the counter had also forced the Realm Lord to retreat by 2 steps. A chance? Shifeng used this opportunity to activate Divine Providence and stabbed the abyssal blade at the Lizardman Chief. Flame burst. After launching a series of devastating attacks, Shifeng eventually reaped the final 10% HP the Lizardman Chief had remaining. Meanwhile, like a bursting balloon, the Realm Lord's body instantly turned into ashes and disappeared. Chapter 1578, Basic Strength Battle Array. Chapter 1578, Basic Strength Battle Array. He's finally dead. Shifeng breathed out a sigh of relief when he saw the Lizardman Chief disappearing. After going berserk, the Lizardman Chief was simply too powerful. Not only was the Realm Lord's strength overwhelming, but his attacks also carried the mana erosion effect. Every time Shifeng clashed with the Realm Lord, although he appeared to have the advantage, in reality, his HP also decreased by a significant amount. At this moment, Shifeng's HP had already fallen below 25%. Had the Lizardman Chief been able to endure a few more attacks, the one to die in that battle would have been Shifeng, instead. Meanwhile, after the Lizardman Chief died, over a dozen items had dropped to the ground, including 3 pieces of level 55 fine gold equipment, 4 pieces of level 55 secret silver equipment, 8 rare materials, and 2 mana barrier crystal fragments. For a level 60 Grand Lord, this loot was quite satisfactory. Not to mention, aside from all these items, the Realm Lord had also dropped 3 design fragments. When Shifeng saw these design fragments, his eyes immediately glowed. After all, these design fragments were meant for none other than the Conqueror's armor design. With this, I'll be able to start producing level 50 fine gold equipment that has a basic battle array added to it. Shifeng smiled as he looked at the 3 design fragments. He then combined the 9 design fragments, forming a complete forging design. Conqueror's armor forging design, advanced design, fine gold rank. When learned, you will be able to produce the level 50 magic rune armor. Every piece of armor produced will have a magic array carved on it. 5 pieces of armor can be used to form a basic strength battle array. Conqueror's armor, chest piece, plate armor, fine gold rank. Level 50. Equipment requirement, strength 700 and agility 700. Defense plus 2150. Strength plus 64, endurance plus 72, agility plus 60. Additional passive skill dash. Life sacrifice. The lower the wearer's HP, the greater the power they will receive. Increases to a maximum of 10% strength and 20% attack speed. Additional active skill dash. Basic strength battle array. Requires 5 or more players wearing the Conqueror's armor to activate. Upon activation, increases wearer's strength by 25%, agility by 15%, endurance by 15%, and physique by 10%. Grants basic perception sharing buff. Stamina and concentration consumption rates are also increased by 400%. Maintaining the battle array costs 1 magic crystal every 5 minutes. The effects of this basic strength battle array sure are powerful. Shifeng could not help his astonishment after reading through the Conqueror's armor's introduction. He had seen many basic battle arrays before. Meanwhile, a basic battle array would be considered excellent if it increased the attribute it specialized in by 20%. Normally, though, most basic battle arrays only increase their specialized attributes by 15%. The Conqueror's armor's basic strength battle array, however, actually increased strength by 25% and 2 other basic attributes by 15%. There was also the 10% improvement to physique. The effects of the basic strength battle array could already rival the transformation effects of demon players. In fact, the basic strength battle array provided even greater improvements to a player's combat power than a demon player's demon state did. After all, the battle array's perception sharing buff allowed players to eliminate their defensive blind spots. This, in turn, would improve a player's combat standards significantly. Moreover, coordination between players wearing the Conqueror's armor would also become much better, and they would be able to execute much more frightening attacks. If a party of 5 elite players was equipped with the Conqueror's armor, they might be able to defeat even a party of 5 ordinary experts. This was the reason the various large guilds had been extremely desperate to obtain equipment with battle arrays in the past. Moreover, the basic strength battle array was only a basic battle array. If the Conqueror's armor had an intermediate or advanced battle array instead, it could provide even more frightening improvements to a player's combat power. In the past, it was also because of some special battle arrays that many insignificant small guilds had managed to survive despite not subordinating themselves to a large guild. Currently, the value of the Conqueror's armor design was worth even more than fragmented legendary items. After going through the Lizardman Chief's loot, Shifeng approached the stone altar and carefully picked up the gold tablet placed on top of it. Shifeng was very curious to find out just what kind of combat technique the tablet recorded. To all players, secret technique tablets were precious treasures that they could use to learn combat techniques from. Moreover, the higher the rank of a secret technique tablet, the more powerful the combat technique one could learn from it. In fact, in order to obtain a gold tablet, an NPC had gone as far as to commit robbery in the middle of Blackwing City. After suppressing the excitement in his heart, Shifeng clicked to inspect the gold tablet. Secret body technique. The pattern engraved on this tablet is too vague and incomplete, and no information can be deciphered. However, some kind of divine power hides within this pattern. If one gathers all of the stone tablets, this vague and incomplete pattern can be restored. Current tablet count 1/3. A secret body technique? Shifeng's eyes glowed as he looked at the gold tablet. It was common knowledge that among the various combat techniques available in God's domain, combat techniques focused on the physical body were the most valuable. Moreover, just like void steps, such techniques were suitable for both physically and magically oriented classes. Even if one failed to grasp the combat technique completely, they would still be able to improve their control over their own bodies. After he finished inspecting the gold tablet, before he could even store it away, a golden light suddenly shone down on him. This is... A pleasant feeling filled Shifeng's body as he was enveloped in this golden light. He also fully recovered all the stamina and concentration he had exhausted previously. System, congratulations! You have exceeded your own limits and achieved an exploit acknowledged by the gods. System, congratulations! You are the first player to have achieved an exploit on the Divine Staircase. Rewarding 15,000 shrine points. So, this is an exploit? Shifeng could not help but feel joyous when he saw the proof of having achieved an exploit appearing in his status window. Also, 15,000 shrine points? The system sure is generous. Unlike shrine points, one's accumulated exploits would not reset upon leaving the World Summit. They would remain until players spent them or deleted them deliberately. Meanwhile, the more valuable items available at the Divine Staircase, such as bloodlines and fragmented legendary items, all required exploits to exchange for. Otherwise, even if one had the necessary shrine points, they would only be able to stare at their desired items, helpless to do anything. Moreover, due to the system reward this time, Shifeng's accumulated shrine points had finally broken past the 100,000 point threshold. He was now qualified to exchange for the cheapest bloodline. After thinking up to this point, Shifeng could not help but quickly leave the 30th Divine Shrine. When he appeared back on the Divine Staircase, a series of system notifications entered his ears. System, congratulations! You have passed the Divine Shrine. Rewarding 1,500 shrine points. System, congratulations! You have passed the Divine Shrine within the time limit. Rewarding 1,500 shrine points. System, congratulations! You have killed the Guardian Boss within the time limit. Rewarding 4,000 shrine points. After including these rewards, Shifeng's total shrine points reached 109,360. However, he still had no intention of ending his challenge. After getting sufficient rest, he immediately proceeded to the next Divine Shrine. Although he currently no longer had enough magic crystals to use world projection for the subsequent Guardian Bosses, even if he could not beat the Guardian Bosses, he was more than capable of maneuvering past them. In any case, he was not required to defeat the Guardian Bosses in order to clear the Divine Shrines and ascend the Divine Staircase. Hence, while avoiding battle with the Guardian Bosses, Shifeng cleared one Divine Shrine after another. Meanwhile, as he was rapidly accumulating more shrine points, some players out on the World Summit had also started to notice something odd. Previously, the highest record on the ranking list displayed before the various Divine Shrines was only at the 33rd Divine Shrine. Now, however, someone had already reached the 35th Divine Shrine. Moreover, this person showed no signs of slowing down as they sped through the 35th Divine Shrine and entered the 36th. Who is this person? Skyhawk, who had just exited the 33rd Divine Shrine, revealed a surprised expression as he looked at the Divine Shrine ranking list. As one reached further Divine Shrines, not only would they face much more difficult bosses, but the traps set up inside the Divine Shrines also became increasingly powerful. In fact, Skyhawk had spent 2 of his 7 attempts on clearing the 33rd Divine Shrine. Furthermore, he had already planned on giving up trying to pass the 34th Divine Shrine altogether. As for the 35th Divine Shrine, he did not even dare think about clearing it. After all, the Divine Staircase's difficulty increased substantially every 5 levels. Despite that, there was actually someone who had successfully done so already and was challenging the 36th. Chapter 1579, Redeeming a Bloodline. Chapter 1579, Redeeming a Bloodline. After Shifeng entered the 36th Divine Shrine, the monsters he came across were mostly chieftains. Meanwhile, the monster patrol squads he encountered were mainly led by level 60 lords, with a few led by high lords. Even an expert player would not dare to pick a fight if they came across such monster patrol squads. Their only option would be to run away. In addition, the traps found inside the Divine Shrine had increased in both quantity and quality. Now, every trap was more than capable of killing a player instantly. If players lacked the strength to cope with the traps and patrol squads simultaneously, it was basically game over for them. To Shifeng, however, these monster patrol squads were no problem whatsoever. Only having to deal with both the traps and monsters at the same time consumed a lot of his time and stamina. Fortunately, he had life essences to help replenish his stamina. Hence, he still managed to arrive at the teleportation array of the 36th Divine Shrine relatively easily. From the 35th Divine Shrine onwards, the Guardian bosses had become Grand Lord ranked archaic species. Even if Shifeng had enough magic crystals to execute Threefold Suppression, he was not confident of defeating such a foe. A casual hit from a Grand Lord ranked archaic species could heavily injure Shifeng even if he succeeded in blocking the attack. If he failed, needless to say, he would be killed instantly. As a result, Shifeng had to resort to Heavenly Dragon's power and life domain to keep himself alive. He then used the doppelganger summoned through Phantom Kill to activate the teleportation array. After the teleportation array was ready, he swapped positions with his doppelganger and promptly left the 36th Divine Shrine. Although Shifeng failed to kill the Guardian boss, passing the 36th Divine Shrine still granted him a total of 4,000 shrine points. Through this method, he smoothly ascended the Divine Staircase all the way up to the 40th Divine Shrine, causing a huge commotion among the players in the World Summit. After all, the second-ranked player only managed to clear the 33rd Divine Shrine. Meanwhile, Shifeng directly chose to give up on the challenge after passing the 40th Divine Shrine. The reason for this decision was the Guardian bosses no longer being Grand Lord ranked archaic species, but mythic monsters, instead, from the 40th Divine Shrine onwards. Whether it was in terms of strength, speed, or combat standards, a mythic monster surpassed the Grand Lord ranked archaic species by a wide margin. Against a mythic monster, skills such as Abyssal Curse and Disintegration Field had minimal effect. Even after Shifeng had used Heavenly Dragon's power, the Guardian boss of the 40th Divine Shrine still managed to overwhelm him. Had Shifeng made even the slightest mistake during the fight, he would have definitely been killed instantly. In the end, he was left with no choice but to resort to twofold berserk. However, even after he did so, against an unsuppressed mythic monster, it had taken him everything he had just to keep his life. Fortunately, he was able to hold out long enough for his doppelganger to activate the teleportation array, and he succeeded in leaving the 40th Divine Shrine. However, after activating twofold berserk, he had also entered a weakened state, which had a very long duration. As this method of clearing the Divine Shrines was simply too time-consuming, Shifeng decided that it was better to give up and use his remaining time to explore the other shrines on the World Summit. After Shifeng chose to leave the Divine Staircase, he arrived back at the Divine Hall located at the bottom of the World Summit. There are so many people. Upon arriving at the Divine Hall, he discovered that most of the demon players he encountered at the World Summit's main entrance were currently present in the Divine Hall. Buying demon potions, 150 gold per bottle. Willing to use level 45 top-tier weapons and equipment to exchange as well. Purchasing set pieces for level 50 dark gold or fine gold set equipment. Price is negotiable. Among the players present inside the Divine Hall, very few were here to exchange for items using their shrine points. Instead, the majority of the players were purchasing items exchanged using shrine points. Rather than an exchange center, the Divine Hall looked more like a marketplace right now. At this moment, a cloaked player approached Shifeng and asked, "Fellow friend, you just came out from the Divine Staircase, right? If you still have points remaining after you're done exchanging for the items you want, I'm willing to purchase those points at a high price. I'll buy 20 points for 1 gold. I'll buy 10 points for 1 gold if you have over 1,000 points, 10 points for 2 gold if you have over 3,000 points, and 10 points for 3 gold if you have over 5,000 points. How about it?" Hearing the cloaked player's words, Shifeng was inwardly astonished. The purchase price was simply too frightening. If players had over 5,000 points on hand, that meant passing the first Divine Shrine alone could already earn them 6 gold coins. If they defeated the Guardian boss as well, they could make a total of 21 gold from clearing the first Divine Shrine. "Sorry, but I don't have that many points to spare," Shifeng replied, shaking his head. He then headed straight for the exchange counter, showing no intention of trading away his points for coins. After all, he did not have a lot of shrine points on hand. Currently, he had accumulated a total of only 146,360 points. Given Shifeng's lack of interest, the cloaked player had no choice but to search for willing sellers. When Shifeng arrived before the exchange counter, a female demon NPC smiled at him and asked, "Hello, sir, may I know what item you wish to exchange for?" "Bloodlines," Shifeng replied. "Bloodlines?" The demon NPC revealed a shocked expression when she heard Shifeng's answer. Very quickly, however, she nodded and said, "All right. Here is a list of bloodlines available for exchange." Although Shifeng and the female demon NPC did not speak loudly, everyone present in the Divine Hall was an expert. They also possessed considerably good physiques. Moreover, they were very familiar with the high-ranking items available for exchange at the Divine Hall. Hence, upon hearing the word "bloodline," they turned to look at Shifeng, who stood before the exchange counter, their ears immediately perking up. "What? That person is actually trying to exchange for a bloodline? Even the cheapest bloodline requires 100,000 points. Previously, I heard that the monsters that managed to pass the 31st Divine Shrine only obtained 32,540 points. They are far from reaching 100,000 points. That guy should just be taking a look at the available bloodlines." "No, that might not be the case. I checked the ranking list just now and saw that someone has already cleared the 40th Divine Shrine. He might be that person. Still, even if he cleared the 40th Divine Shrine, it shouldn't be possible for him to accumulate so many points." At this moment, everyone looked at Shifeng with eyes filled with curiosity. After all, to them, 100,000 shrine points was an astronomical amount. It seems nobody else has discovered it yet? From the hushed discussions Shifeng overheard, he couldn't help but pity these expert demon players. In order to save time, these players had chosen the fastest method to clear the divine shrines and missed out on the opportunity to obtain the points for killing the guardian bosses. However, he also wasn't so kind-hearted as to announce this fact. Following which, he focused his gaze on the list of bloodlines the NPC provided him. There was a total of 33 different bloodlines available for exchange. Among them, 23 were basic bloodlines, 8 were advanced bloodlines, and 2 were peak bloodlines. In his 2 lives playing God's Domain, this was the first time Shifeng saw so many bloodlines gathered in one place. Meanwhile, any single one of these bloodlines could cause any expert in the past to go crazy over it. Even apex experts would have been willing to pay any price to acquire one of these bloodlines. Chapter 1580, Hidden Benefit. Chapter 1580, Hidden Benefit. Sure enough, they are all amazing. It's no wonder so many experts were so crazy about bloodlines back then. Shifeng felt slightly emotional when he saw the list of bloodlines. In the past, even superpowers had an extremely tough time getting their hands on bloodlines. Information on bloodlines was also heavily restricted. Even though Shifeng had been the guild leader of a second-rate guild, he had not possessed any detailed information on bloodlines. All he knew was that bloodlines improved a player's life rating and that they were of great help when players got promoted to higher tiers. Meanwhile, Although the list of bloodlines the demon NPC gave him did not reveal a lot of information, what he could see was already more than enough to thrill him. Even the most ordinary bloodline would allow players to undergo a qualitative transformation. Take the Frost bloodline, for example. It increased the owner's compatibility with ice-type skills and spells, improving their skill and spell completion rates and base power. In addition, players with bloodlines would gain some extra basic attribute points every time they leveled up. In the case of the Frost bloodline, its primary focus was intelligence, while strength, agility, endurance, and vitality were secondary. Moreover, the bonus basic attributes gained through leveling up would further increase with each tier promotion. Eventually, as players rose in levels, the gap in basic attributes between players with bloodlines and players without bloodlines would also grow increasingly wider, to the point where the disparity could instill despair. However, looking at the cost of the various bloodlines listed, Sherfone could not help but frown. Of the 2 peak bloodlines available, one needed 340,000 SPs, while the other needed 360,000 SPs. In addition, both of them required 3 exploits each. These peak bloodlines were even more expensive than the top-tier fragmented legendary items. As for the 8 advanced bloodlines, they, too, were far beyond Sherfeng's reach, as even the cheapest among them cost 200,000 SPs and 2 exploits, while the most expensive one cost 260,000 SPs and 2 exploits. Even if he managed to kill the mythic rank Guardian boss in the 40th Divine Shrine, accumulating 200,000 SPs was unlikely. It seems I can exchange for only a basic bloodline. Sherfone could not help but sigh. Revealing a bitter smile, he set his eyes on the 23 basic bloodlines. Even the cheap basic bloodline, which was named Boulder Bloodline, cost 100,000 SPs and 1 exploit. The Boulder bloodline improved a player's defense, and the main basic attribute it increased was endurance. It was a bloodline more suited for MTs rather than swordsmen. In the end, Sherfone narrowed his choices to 3 bloodlines. Hurricane bloodline. Increases compatibility with wind-type skills and spells. Mainly improves agility, followed by endurance, strength, vitality, and intelligence. Requires 115,000 shrine points and 1 exploit to exchange. Scorching Flame bloodline. Increases compatibility with fire-type skills and spells. Mainly improves endurance, followed by strength, agility, vitality, and intelligence. Requires 122,000 shrine points and 1 exploit to exchange. Earth Dragon bloodline. Increases magic resistance. Mainly improves strength, followed by endurance, agility, vitality, and intelligence. Requires 125,000 shrine points and 1 exploit to exchange. These 3 bloodlines were more suitable for a melee physical class like the swordsman class. Whether they were wind-type or fire-type skills, the swordsman class had a little of both. Hence, the Hurricane and Scorching Flame bloodlines would provide significant improvements to a swordsman's DPS. As for the Earth Dragon bloodline, it was suitable for practically every class in the game. As players reached higher levels, the maps available for them to grind in would have increasingly poor environments. In the past, many players would even prepare multiple sets of equipment to cope with different environments. Hence, magic resistance was very helpful to players. All 3 bloodlines were considerably good. At the moment, Sherfone did not know which bloodline to choose. "Sir, should I recommend you a few bloodlines that are suited to yourself?" the female demon NPC asked, smiling as she looked at Sherfeng's hesitant expression. "May I know what your recommendations are?" Sherfone could not help but ask curiously. Recommendations from NPCs were generally very accurate. However, it was not easy for players to get one from them. Usually, a player had to be lucky or have sufficiently high favorability with an NPC for such a situation to occur. "As you are the heavens blessed that has progressed the furthest up the divine staircase, you get to enjoy a 10% discount on all exchanges. Hence, I recommend either the Thunderblade Advanced Bloodline or the Dark Iron Basic Bloodline," the female demon replied as she called out 2 displays showing the details of the bloodlines she mentioned. You're saying the number 1 ranking player in the Divine Staircase gets a 10% discount? Sherfone was slightly surprised to hear this. He never thought that the Divine Staircase's ranking list also provided such a hidden benefit. The Thunderblade bloodline the female demon mentioned was an advanced bloodline. It improved not only a player's compatibility with lightning-type skills and spells but also their attack speed. As for basic attributes, the advanced bloodline mainly improved strength and agility, followed by intelligence, endurance, and vitality. However, since it was a powerful bloodline, its cost was also frighteningly high. It needed a whopping 230,000 shrine points and 2 exploits. Even with the 10% discount, he couldn't afford this bloodline. As for the Dark Iron bloodline, it increased a player's compatibility with melee skills. As for basic attributes, the bloodline mainly increased strength, followed by agility, endurance, vitality, and intelligence. The bloodline's price was, likewise, very high, requiring 150,000 SPs and 1 exploit. Currently, he had 146,360 SPs. If he included the 10% discount, he would have more than enough to exchange for the Dark Iron bloodline. I'll exchange for this Dark Iron bloodline, Sherfone said, inwardly ecstatic as he looked at the Dark Iron bloodline. Among the many basic bloodlines available, the Dark Iron bloodline was the most suited to melee classes. Since he could afford it, he naturally wouldn't go choosing other basic bloodlines. Alright. You have to pay a total of 135,000 shrine points and 1 exploit, the female demon said, nodding. Immediately, a payment window appeared before Sherfone. Without hesitation, he chose to complete the transaction. A moment later, the female demon retrieved a pitch-black crystal bottle from a magic array beside her. She then carefully handed the bottle over to Sherfone. So, this is a bloodline? As Sherfone looked at the pitch-black liquid inside the magic crystal bottle, he could sense vitality radiating from the liquid. Moreover, the liquid also contained terrifying power. This is the Dark Iron bloodline you've purchased. Please store it away properly. May I know if you have anything else you wish to exchange for? I wish to exchange for the cheapest god crystal available. When Sherfone took a look at the shrine points he had remaining, he saw he still had 11,360 points left. Meanwhile, the cheapest god crystal up for exchange cost 12,000 SPs before discount, which was significantly less expensive than an epic item. Not to mention, compared to an epic item, a god crystal was much more useful to him. Following which, the female demon inserted her hand into the magic array beside her again and retrieved a god crystal. Every god crystal carried the remnant divine might of a god. Hence, the mere appearance of a god crystal caused the players inside the divine hall to feel an enormous pressure bearing down on them. What is this pressure? It's so strong! What kind of item can give off such a powerful pressure? Who is that person? Just now, he seemed to have exchanged for a bloodline already. Now, he's even exchanging for such an item. Just how many points does he have? The crowd inside the divine hall stared at Sherfone in shock. The players that previously doubted him now looked at him with eyes brimming with envy and admiration. A bloodline. That was something that could allow even an ordinary player to become an expert. If demon experts like themselves could obtain a bloodline, they would definitely become one of the apex existences in God's domain in the future. Hence, how could they not envy Sherfone? Meanwhile, after Sherfone obtained the Dark Iron bloodline and God Crystal, he no longer had any reason to remain in the Divine Hall. He immediately turned around and headed towards the exit. However, before Sherfone could leave the Divine Hall, a man suddenly stood in his way. Smiling, the man said, "Fellow friend, your performance at the Divine Staircase is amazing. May I know if you can hand over that bloodline you have to the Flower of Seven Sins? Rest assured, the Flower of Seven Sins definitely will not mistreat you and will reward you amply." With a look, Sherfone identified the man before him as none other than Skyhawk of the Flower of Seven Sins. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.